brought the most important people in her life to her side, soothing her longing for familial affection and dispelling the last remnants of shadow cast by secrecy in her heart. After a while, Lorenzo stepped forward at the right moment, his voice low and gentle, imbued with undeniable thoughtfulness. "Uncle, Auntie, it is chilly outside. Please come inside." He had prepared hot tea and snacks, and we can chat leisurely. His meticulous concern caused Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu to exchange glances, their appreciation for the young and powerful Mr. DeSantis rising even further. He was not the unapproachable figure they had imagined, but rather displayed a humble and considerate side. Lin Ji quickly wiped away her tears, breaking into a smile. Linking arms with her mother and father, her voice brimming with joy. "Yes, Mom and Dad, let us go inside. It is a bit cold outside." She turned back, her gaze meeting Lorenzo's, where the depth of affection and gratitude in her eyes spoke volumes. Sunlight bathed the rustic elegance of the estate's exterior, warmly enveloping this family. Finally reunited, the servants stood quietly to the side, their faces adorned with genuine smiles as they watched their master gently wrap his arm around Miss Lin's shoulder, accompanying her and her parents through the door that symbolized warmth and belonging. The autumn breeze rustled past, and the scent of lilies seemed to grow even more fragrant. Chapter 50. Overflowing with warmth. In the parlor of Hampstead Manor, warmth enveloped the space like spring. The enormous fireplace crackled with the sound of dry oak burning, its flickering flames dispelling the damp chill characteristic of an English autumn. A dazzling crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling, casting a soft glow over the lavish Persian carpet and velvet sofas, creating an ambience that was both luxurious and inviting. The air was infused with a delicate aroma of Earl Grey tea and freshly baked pastries, mingling with the comforting scent of wood from the fireplace, instilling a sense of tranquility. According to Lorenzo's meticulous prior arrangements, the well-trained servants had quietly presented steaming cups of tea along with an array of delicately crafted pastries that resembled works of art. Petite scones paired with clotted cream and strawberry jam, colorful macarons, and a French fruit tart adorned with vibrant berries, as well as traditional Chinese nourishing pastries prepared specifically for Lin Ji. Each detail reflected the host's attentive consideration. Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu sat comfortably on the soft, spacious sofa, cradling warm teacups in their hands, savoring the thoughtful hospitality that exceeded their expectations. Their admiration for Lorenzo deepened further. This young Italian gentleman not only possessed a distinguished identity and remarkable wealth, but also exhibited a rare maturity and attention to detail that transcended his years. As he settled in, Lorenzo naturally took a seat next to Lin Ji, his arm casually draped over the back of the sofa, creating a protective yet unobtrusive aura of possession. Lin Ji had grown accustomed to his constant presence and care, turning to him with a sweet, dependent smile. This innocent and warm expression struck Lorenzo's heart, stirring emotions within him that he struggled to contain, only managing to mask his overwhelming affection by lifting his teacup. Lin Ji's parents observed this exchange, their eyes quietly meeting as they instantly understood each other's thoughts. Their daughter's unguarded smile and Lorenzo's barely concealed adoration revealed everything. They shared a knowing smile, and the tension in their hearts seemed to settle at that moment. "Mom and Dad." Lin Ji placed her delicate bone china teacup down, her voice light and cheerful. "How long do you plan to stay in England this time?" Zhuang Mingshu gently held her daughter's hand, patting it affectionately, her eyes brimming with love. "Now that we see you are well and your complexion has improved, we can finally relax. We'll stay here for a week at most. Your father has many responsibilities at the academy, with several research projects awaiting his leadership." The dean was initially reluctant to grant him leave, she said, glancing at Lorenzo with genuine gratitude, but thankfully, Mr. DeSantis helped coordinate everything. Upon hearing this somewhat formal address, Lorenzo promptly set his teacup down, leaning slightly forward, his demeanor earnest and humble. "Auntie, you are too kind. Please just call me Lorenzo," he replied. Zhuang Mingshu paused, surprised by his directness and inviting closeness. Instinctively glancing at her husband, Lin Yizhou adjusted his glasses and nodded steadily, his eyes reflecting approval. Zhuang Mingshu then looked back at Lorenzo, her expression softening into a warmer smile as she readily agreed. "All right, Lorenzo. We truly owe you a great deal of thanks. It is because of your help that your uncle and I could temporarily set aside our affairs to come see Gigi. When I received your call about her injury, we were frantic, wanting nothing more than to fly over immediately. Unfortunately, flights from Beijing to Europe were fully booked during those days." Recalling the urgency of that moment, her tone still carried a hint of apprehension, yet her gaze towards Lorenzo was filled with gratitude. "It was really thoughtful of you to arrange a private jet to pick us up. Your attention to detail is remarkable." Lin Yizhou nodded in agreement, his tone serious. "Yes, Lorenzo, we are truly grateful to you." To be so sincerely thanked by Lin Ji's parents left Lorenzo, usually unfazed in the tumultuous world he navigated, feeling a rare sense of bashfulness. He lowered his gaze momentarily, and when he raised it again, his gray eyes were filled with earnestness. "Uncle, Auntie, please don't mention it. This is what I should do. You are Ji's parents, and it is my duty to respect and care for you." His words were resolute, resonating with an undeniable sincerity. Lin Ji's parents, observing his genuine demeanor and then glancing at their daughter nestled beside him, radiating happiness, felt their last doubts dissipate, replaced by relieved and contented smiles. Sensing her parents' change in attitude, Lin Ji was filled with sweetness and gratitude. She discreetly extended her finger beneath the armrest of the sofa, gently hooking it around Lorenzo's fingers resting beside him. The subtle touch sent a current of electricity coursing through Lorenzo. He instinctively enveloped her delicate fingertips in his warm palm. Turning to her, his gaze brimming with deep emotion, he nearly succumbed to the urge to lean in and kiss her soft lips. But the presence of her parents reminded him to restrain himself, causing his throat to constrict slightly. Feeling the warmth of his palm and the restrained desire within him, Lin Ji's cheeks flushed. To shift the intimate atmosphere, she playfully addressed her parents, Mom and Dad. Look, I'm feeling much better now. I think I could even return to the lab. But Lorenzo won't allow it. She pouted, a familiar demeanor that only surfaced in the presence of her closest loved ones. In this moment, she displayed this side of herself so naturally before Lorenzo, prompting her parents to exchange glances that conveyed a deeper understanding of the profound bond between their daughter and Lorenzo DeSantis. Upon hearing her words, Lorenzo turned to Lin Ji, his eyes filled with uncompromising affection and concern. No, Ji. Sir Charles has indicated that your body requires gradual recuperation. Engaging in high-intensity and focused research now would be overwhelming for you. His tone was gentle yet firm. Lin Ijo joined the persuasion, speaking as both father and scholar. Little Ji, listening to Lorenzo is wise. Scientific research is a long-term endeavor, and your health is paramount. Your most important task right now is to fully recover. Everything else can wait. Zhuang Mingshu nodded in agreement. Seeing her parents aligned with Lorenzo, Lin Ji reluctantly nodded, murmuring, all right. Lorenzo, moved by her obedient yet slightly aggrieved expression, felt an even deeper affection. He adjusted his posture, facing Lin Ji's parents, and suggested in a calm tone, Uncle, Auntie, since you have come all the way to Europe, why not take the opportunity to explore the region over the next few days? London, Paris, or Venice, all are wonderful options. I apologize for my busy schedule. I may not be able to accompany you personally, but I will arrange for my most capable assistant, Marco, to take care of everything, including your itinerary, accommodation, translations, and transportation. He paused, turning his gaze toward Lin Ji with concern. If Xi's health permits and she wishes to join you, she can accompany you as well. I will ensure additional security personnel are assigned to guarantee everyone's absolute safety. His meticulous arrangements respected the elders while considering Lin Ji's wishes and health, placing safety as the utmost priority. Upon hearing Lorenzo's thoughtful plans, Lin Ji and her parents exchanged smiles of delight. Lin Ijo expressed on behalf of the family, Lorenzo, you have gone to great lengths. This arrangement is excellent, and we look forward to it. Lorenzo nodded slightly, then turned to Lin Ji, gently brushing his fingertip against her pert nose in a tender gesture. This intimate act was filled with affection, and he softly reminded her, his voice imbued with warmth. You too must take care of your health. Don't overexert yourself, understand? Lin Ji felt the lingering warmth on her nose. Gazing into his eyes that openly displayed his deep feelings and concern, her heart swelling with immense happiness and security. She nodded vigorously, her eyes sparkling with bright light. The glow of the fireplace illuminated the smiling faces of the family, warmth flowing through the living room, as if the air itself was infused with sweet aromas. Anna, the housekeeper, observing this harmonious scene from a distance, wore a contented smile, discreetly signaling the staff to refrain from interrupting this tender moment. Chapter 51. After the journey, the week-long sojourn across Europe, meticulously orchestrated by Marco, culminated in a splendid finale. Lin Ji accompanied her parents, basking in the gentle waves along the banks of the Seine in Paris, gazing upon the moonlight beneath the Bridge of Sighs in Venice, and strolling through the mist surrounding the Tower Bridge in London. Every destination offered a leisurely yet exquisite itinerary, with luxurious accommodations at top-tier hotels, attentive service from private guides and vehicles, and the exquisite Michelin-starred restaurants tucked away in the alleyways, which required months of advance reservations. Every detail was carefully arranged, ensuring that this journey across multiple countries was not only devoid of fatigue, but also brimming with relaxation and delightful surprises. Throughout the trip, Lorenzo, though entangled in the weighty matters of the consortium, never ceased to connect via phone calls or video chats. He would invariably take a moment to inquire about Lin Ji's well-being, whether she was enjoying herself, his tone imbued with such concern that it seemed to transcend the screen. More often than not, he would specifically ask about her parents' comfort, their adaptability, and any additional needs they might have. Each time Lin Ji sweetly recounted the day's amusing anecdotes in a playful, melodious voice, mentioning how happy her parents were. Lorenzo, even if ensconced at a bustling negotiation table or grappling with complex disputes, would unconsciously allow the corners of his lips to lift, his normally steely gray eyes softening as if drenched in honey. He would tenderly and tirelessly remind her, Ji, do take care of yourself, and do not overexert. Lin Ji would obediently acknowledge his words, and across the distance of the phone line, they could feel the lingering affection between them. On the final day of their journey, they returned to the Hampstead estate. The afterglow of the setting sun bathed the estate in a warm golden hue, and the familiar scent of lilies wafted through the air, bringing a sense of tranquility akin to returning home. Despite their extensive travels, thanks to Lorenzo's thoughtful arrangements, all three felt invigorated and not particularly fatigued. At this moment, they were seated in the spacious, luxurious outer sitting room prepared for Lin Ji's parents, adorned with elegant yet cozy decor, featuring serene landscape oil paintings on the walls, a soft sofa complemented by a brass reading lamp, and a view of the pristine white lily garden in the backyard, still radiant in the twilight. The attentive servants had quietly prepared a selection of teas to cater to each individual's palate. A refined purple clay teapot brewed Lin Zhou's preferred, richly aromatic aged Tiguanyin. For Zhuang Mingshu, there was her favorite, jasmine snow, a harmonious blend of jasmine petals and green tea, blooming in fine porcelain cups and exuding a delightful fragrance. As for Lin Ji, before her was not tea, but a bowl of steaming, meticulously crafted tonic soup, infused with a delicate aroma of herbal ingredients and nourishment. The trio gathered enthusiastically to discuss their recent experiences, transitioning from the Mona Lisa at the Louvre to the melodious serenades of the gondoliers in Venice, naturally steering the conversation towards the orchestrator of their journey. It is truly thanks to Lorenzo, Zhuang Mingshu remarked, cradling her warm teacup, genuinely impressed by the meticulousness of the arrangements, even remembering her tea preferences. This young man appears youthful, yet conducts himself with such composed diligence. It is indeed rare. Lin Zhou savored a sip of the rich Tiguanyin and nodded in agreement. Indeed, his position is unique, and his responsibilities must be extraordinarily demanding, yet he still dedicates the energy to arrange everything so thoughtfully. This consideration is truly profound. He gazed gently at his daughter, saying, Xiaoji, Lorenzo is indeed earnest in his intentions towards you. As Lin Ji listened to her parents' praises of Lorenzo, her heart swelled with warmth, akin to honey melting within. She lowered her gaze, a smile of happiness lingering on her lips, softly affirming, his kindness extends far beyond this, encompassing the guardianship during moments of peril and the daily nuances that have filled her heart to the brim. However, Lin Zhou's tone suddenly shifted. He set down his teacup, a shadow of paternal concern crossing his features. He pondered for a moment before speaking. We, as parents, have observed Lorenzo's care and thoughtfulness towards Xiaoji. It is evident to any discerning eye that his feelings for her are genuine. However, he paused, carefully choosing his words. Lorenzo is, after all, a man of considerable influence in both the legitimate and underworld realms of Europe, wielding immense power. He turned to his wife, Zhuang Mingshu, who had also sobered, her eyes reflecting similar apprehension. Lin Zhou continued, with such a status and power, he undoubtedly attracts various women eager to align themselves with him. While we believe his feelings for Xiaoji are sincere at present, who can guarantee that such sincerity will endure a lifetime? He sighed softly, invoking the wisdom of ancient proverbs, remarking, as the ancients said, a disparity in status cannot be overlooked. I fear that the gap between our backgrounds and his is simply too vast. Should Xiaoji encounter grievances in the future, our ability to support her may be limited. Zhuang Mingshu nodded repeatedly, grasping her daughter's hand, her tone filled with concern. Indeed, Gigi, your father is right. Lorenzo is well-meaning, but we must consider the implications of such disparities. His world is far too complex and elevated. I worry for you in the future. As Lin Ji absorbed her parents' heartfelt worries, her once sweetly tranquil heart felt as though a stone had been cast into its depths, sending ripples of uncertainty across its surface. She understood the implications of the disparity in status and had often harbored similar doubts deep within her heart. Lorenzo's world was indeed a stark contrast to the environment in which she had grown. It was a whirlpool rife with power, darkness, danger, and irresistible temptation. She felt his love profoundly and without doubt. Yet, the weighty word lifetime encompassed too many variables. Lowering her lashes, casting a faint shadow beneath her long eyelashes, her mind whirled, and she could only softly murmur, Dad, Mom, I understand your concerns before her words could fully escape. The heavy wooden door of the sitting room was abruptly pushed open from the outside, colliding with the buffer inside with a resounding thud. All three were startled, their heads snapping up in unison. There stood the imposing figure of Lorenzo at the doorway, evidently having overheard the conversation, emanating an aura of the chill from outside. His expensive black cashmere coat hung open casually, revealing a tailored yet slightly creased dark suit beneath, his tie somewhat askew. The wind had tousled his hair, and his chiseled features bore a hint of lingering fatigue, yet his deep gray eyes blazed with the intensity of burning stars, sharp, urgent, and imbued with a sense of irrevocable determination. Clearly having learned of their return, he had immediately cast aside all engagements and hastened back without delay. His gaze quickly locked onto Lin Ji, capturing the fleeting confusion on her face and the lingering concern in her parents' eyes. He scarcely had time to remove his cold coat or engage in any formalities. Under the astonished gazes of the three, he strode forward, taking several steps towards them. Then, in a moment that left everyone, including the poised and trained Anna, their housekeeper, gasping in astonishment, this man, renowned in Europe's underworld and commanding a vast empire, knelt before Lin Ji and her parents in a manner reminiscent of a knight pledging loyalty in the Middle Ages, without hesitation, solemnly placing one knee on the ground. "Uncle, Auntie." Luo Lunju raised his head, his gaze piercingly fixed upon the astonished Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu, who were rendered speechless. His voice, tinged with urgency and the remnants of his rapid journey, was imbued with clarity and resolve, each word seemingly extracted with great effort. "Please forgive my audacious intrusion. I was just outside, and I faintly overheard your concerns about Qi Fei Ao." He repeated this ancient Chinese phrase, having a certain understanding of Chinese culture. Although his proficiency in the language was not exemplary, he could comprehend the dialogue among Lin Ji and the others. A flicker of pain crossed his gray eyes, soon overshadowed by a surging sincerity and determination. "I know my world is complex and dark, and my identity may appear insurmountable, perhaps even a source of peril in your eyes. I cannot alter my origins or the path I have traversed, but I vow to you." Lin Ji was taken aback by his sudden gesture, her heart racing uncontrollably, instinctively reaching out to help him rise. "Luo Linju, please get up." "No, Ji, allow me to finish." Luo Lunju firmly interjected, his large hand warm and strong, gently brushing her fingertips before turning his gaze to her parents. His eyes resolute as the sturdiest rock, leaving no room for doubt. Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu were entirely captivated by this formidable presence before them, still bearing the chill of the outside, yet with eyes ablaze like molten lava. Having lived for half a lifetime, they had never witnessed such a spectacle. For a moment, they were at a loss for how to react, merely staring at him, as if still reeling from this overwhelming shock. In the reception room, the silence was palpable. Only the crackling of the firewood in the fireplace and the slightly disordered breaths of those present intertwined in the air. Chapter 52. The oath time in the reception room seemed suspended by an invisible force. The flames in the hearth danced vigorously, casting a long, devout shadow of Luo Lunju's kneeling figure upon the luxurious carpet. The remnants of the outdoor chill clung to his coat, presenting a stark contrast to the fervent resolve reflected in his eyes. His kneeling posture was not one of submission, but rather a solemn and decisive homage akin to that of an ancient knight pledging fealty, exuding a profound sense of impactful strength. Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu were rendered speechless by this unexpected scene, far beyond their comprehension, their teacups forgotten in their hands as they stared at the young man kneeling before them. In the corner, Anna, the housekeeper, instinctively covered her slightly parted mouth with her hand, her eyes filled with disbelief that soon transformed into deep emotion. She discreetly signaled to the equally astonished servants to retreat into the shadows, granting an absolute space of privacy. Luo Lunju disregarded everything around him. His gaze was like the most precise of chains, firmly locking onto the shocked and hesitant faces of Lin Ji's parents. His voice was deep and clear, each word seemingly forced from the depths of his chest, carrying a metallic resonance and undeniable weight. "Uncle, Aunt," he began, his tone imbued with unprecedented earnestness and gravity. "I understand that behind the words Qi Fei Ao lies your profound concern and love for Ji. You fear that my world is too intricate and dark, worried that my power brings uncertain danger, and most of all, concerned whether my feelings for Ji might become tainted amidst such complexity and temptation." He paused slightly, his deep gray eyes swirling with intricate emotions, a confession of his background intertwined with a sincere determination. "I cannot erase my past, nor can I render the surname de Sangdi commonplace. This name signifies wealth and power, indeed associated with shadows and bloodshed unimaginable to the ordinary. It has been both my shackles and my sword. Yet today, I stand here, vowing upon the glory of this name." His voice suddenly escalated, imbued with a conviction that seemed capable of shattering all doubts. "I, Luo Lunju de Sangdi, hereby swear to you upon the bloodline and soul of my family. In this life and beyond, I shall love only Lin Ji. I will devote all my strength to cherish and protect her, ensuring she suffers not the slightest grievance due to me or my world. Her smile shall be the highest mission of my existence. Her safety shall surpass all my interests. Even if it requires the sacrifice of my life, I shall not permit anyone or anything to harm her in the slightest." The oath reverberated within the warm room, imbued with an almost religious solemnity. Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu listened to this resolute vow, tinged with the scent of blood, gazing into his eyes that held an unmistakable, rock-solid determination, leaving them profoundly shaken. They could sense that this was not mere flattery. This was the utmost, heaviest promise a man accustomed to wielding life and death, traversing the razor's edge, could offer. Luo Linju's gaze softened yet remained unwavering as he turned to Lin Ji's parents, his tone filled with respect, simultaneously. "I vow to you that I will always respect you as I do my own parents. You are Ji's parents, the ones who brought her into this world, and I am immensely grateful to you. Please rest assured in entrusting Ji to me." Having made this promise to her parents, he finally turned his gaze to Lin Ji, who was already in tears, covering her mouth to stifle her sobs. As he looked at her, the fierceness and resolution in his eyes transformed into a profound, drowning tenderness. His voice low and gentle, reminiscent of the most poignant cello melody. Ji, he called her name, as if it were the most precious incantation in the world, my treasure. The only light in my dark life. Will you marry me, a man whose hands may be stained, yet who is willing to cleanse your soul and restore your faith? Will you allow me to use the remainder of my life to atone for the harm you have endured, to cherish and love you until the end of my days? Tears streamed down Lin Ji's face like a cascade of pearls. She gazed at the man kneeling before her, a man powerful enough to upend a family, cold enough to instill fear, yet at this moment, he laid aside all pride and defenses, adopting the most humble yet exalted posture to plead for a chance to share his life with her. The sincerity, weight, and unabashedly almost obsessive love in his words surged like a mighty current, instantly obliterating the last defenses she had erected due to her parents' concerns. All her doubts and fears regarding Qi de Fei Ao dissipated before his thunderous yet gentle vow. Zhuang Mingshu could no longer contain herself. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she turned to her husband, her voice choked with emotion. Old Lin. She too was deeply moved by this extraordinary display of feelings. Lin Yizhou, known for his rational demeanor, also felt his eyes redden, his throat constricting. He looked at Luo Lunju. This young man whose status was worlds apart from theirs, yet willingly knelt to swear an oath, his heart a tumult of emotions. He understood well that Luo Lunju's standing rendered such an act unnecessary. His willingness to take this step could only signify that his love for their daughter transcended all worldly measures, deeply rooted to the bone. Taking a deep breath to steady his racing heart, his voice emerged hoarse but imbued with a sense of resolution and relief. Good boy. He extended his hand, trembling slightly. Attempting to assist Luo Lunju. Please rise. We believe in you. Little Ji is entrusted to you. We are at ease. Zhuang Mingshu hurriedly wiped her tears, nodding in agreement. Her voice choked and unable to articulate further, yet her expression radiated complete acquiescence and blessing. However, Lorenzo did not rise immediately. His gaze remained fervent, imbued with a final plea and anticipation, firmly locked onto Lin Ji's tear-streaked visage. He was waiting, awaiting her answer, the one that could elevate him from the depths of despair to the heights of joy. Unable to contain herself any longer, Lin Ji broke free from her mother's grasp and nearly knelt before him, extending her trembling hands to support him. Tears cascaded onto his opulent coat as her voice trembled, nearly out of tune. All right, Lorenzo, I promise you, I am willing to marry you. Please get up. Upon hearing her declaration of willingness, a euphoric brilliance erupted in Lorenzo's eyes, akin to a galaxy bursting forth in jubilant splendor. He ceased his insistence, rising with Lin Ji's assistance, but in the next moment, he abruptly extended his arms, enveloping the weeping woman who had granted him the lifelong wish, into a tight embrace. The force of his grip seemed to merge her entirely into his very being, never to be separated. He buried his face deep into her fragrant neck, greedily inhaling her essence, feeling her genuine warmth. At last, a heart that had been suspended in turmoil and wrath found solace, finally settling in contentment within his chest. He held her close, turning towards Lin Ji's parents, his voice quavering with emotion, yet filled with gratitude and solemnity. Thank you, uncle, auntie, thank you. Thank you for entrusting Ji to me. With that, he leaned down, planting fervent, loving kisses like gentle raindrops upon Lin Ji's wet eyelids, tear-stained cheeks, and finally, marking her smooth forehead with an everlasting, vow-like imprint. Ji, he whispered in her ear, his voice husky and affectionate, imbued with a sense of fortunate survival and immense happiness. Thank you. Thank you for believing in me and for entrusting yourself to me. I love you more than my own life. You are my only love in this lifetime. Lorenzo DeSantis, and my heart and feelings remain unwavering until death. In Lorenzo's reassuring embrace, Lin Ji felt his strong, steady heartbeat and the fervor of his confession. All her uncertainties and doubts smoothed away. She buried her face into his solid chest, listening to his equally restless heartbeat, nodding vigorously, sobbing yet resolutely replying, Yes. I believe in you, Lorenzo, I love you too. Outside, the night quietly descended, and the lights in the estate illuminated one by one, resembling scattered stars, gently enveloping this land that had witnessed their sincere vows. The flames in the fireplace blazed more vigorously, crackling as if bestowing the warmest blessings upon this couple who had endured trials to finally unite. Anna, the housekeeper, discreetly wiped away a tear from the corner of her eye, signaling to the servants behind her. All departed the parlor with genuine smiles, leaving this space filled with happiness solely for them. Chapter 53. Bittersweet farewells. The October sky over London resembled a piece of damp, light gray silk, glimmering with a moist sheen. On the private airport runway, the silver-gray Bombardier Global Express awaited, its streamlined body appearing particularly solemn amidst the misty air. Lin Ji donned the warm, white cashmere coat Lorenzo had prepared for her, the delicate collar accentuating her fair complexion, though her eyes were slightly reddened, nestled beside Lorenzo. Lorenzo remained clad in a sharply tailored black overcoat, his stature tall and proud like a pine tree, one arm securely draped over Lin Ji's shoulder, silently conveying support and warmth. Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu stood at the foot of the boarding stairs, making final adjustments to their carry-on luggage, their faces reflecting a mixture of reluctance and pride for their daughter's future. Lorenzo, Lin Yizhou turned, solemnly gazing at the young man who was about to become his son-in-law, his tone deep. "We entrust little Ji to you." He patted Lorenzo's arm, their unspoken emotions lingering in the air. Zhuang Mingshu stepped forward, smoothing the wind-tousled strands of her daughter's hair, eyes glistening with tears. Her voice choked. "You must take good care of yourself, eat on time, don't overwork, and always call your father and mother if you need anything." She glanced at Lorenzo, her expression filled with concern. "Lorenzo, we leave Ji in your care." Lorenzo's expression turned grave, as if accepting the most significant of responsibilities. He nodded slightly, his gaze unwavering as he faced the two elders. "Uncle, Auntie, please rest assured. I swear by my life that I will not allow Ji to suffer even a moment of distress. I will take care of her every need, respect her wishes, and support her endeavors." His words were succinct, yet carried the weight of conviction, imbued with undeniable sincerity. He paused briefly, adding, "The private jet is fully arranged, with the most experienced crew, and the weather along our route has been confirmed to be clear. Wishing you a safe journey. Upon arriving in Beijing, Marco's appointed personnel will ensure your safe return home." Lin Ji sniffled, stifling the tears that threatened to spill, and stepped forward to embrace her parents tightly. "Dad, Mom, you must take care of yourselves as well. Don't worry about me. I will be all right." Her voice was thick with emotion, laden with attachment. Amidst the heartfelt farewells, Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu ascended the boarding stairs, glancing back repeatedly. The cabin doors slowly closed, and the airplane's engine began to emit a low rumble. Lorenzo held Lin Ji, standing at a safe distance, watching the bombardier glide, accelerate, and finally break through London's heavy clouds, disappearing from sight. Not until the sky showed no trace of the aircraft did Lin Ji release a soft sigh, burying her slightly chilled cheek into Lorenzo's warm coat. After a moment, as if recalling something, she extended her index finger, gently poking Lorenzo's firm chest, lifting her face. Her tone carried a hint of playfulness and insistence. "Lorenzo, look, I am truly fine now, both mentally and physically. My experimental project has reached the crucial data analysis stage. I must return to the lab." Lorenzo lowered his head, gazing at the spark in her eyes that had returned, and the slightly pouting lips from their recent parting. His heart softened. A smirk of indulgence and meaning curled at the corners of his lips, his gray eyes sparkling with mischief. "Really? Are you completely well? Every part of you?" Lin Ji nodded vigorously, earnestness radiating from her. "Of course. We can have Sir Charles come for another check. I guarantee there will be no issues." Lorenzo chuckled softly, his voice lowered to a husky, magnetic whisper as he leaned close to her delicate ear, his warm breath cascading over her tender skin, eliciting a slight shiver. In a tone only they could hear, he playfully murmured a few words. Lin Ji's ears flushed a visible shade of crimson, the hue swiftly spreading across her cheeks and neck, making her resemble a ripe, succulent peach, enticingly ready to be picked. Embarrassed and annoyed, she lightly pounded her small fist against his chest, her voice a blend of playful reproach. "You are truly incorrigible." Lorenzo laughed joyfully, seizing her mischievous hand and enveloping it within his warm palm. He lowered his head, his deep gaze locking onto her shyly darting eyes, gentlemanly yet possessively pressing a fervent kiss onto the back of her smooth hand. The warmth of that kiss felt as though it had been seared into Lin Ji's very heart. "Home, my Ji," he straightened, his arms still possessively encircling her waist, his voice returning to its usual calmness, yet laced with undeniable tenderness. Lin Ji's cheeks still warmed, and feeling shy, she slightly turned away, yet did not extricate herself from his embrace, merely nodding imperceptibly. Waiting nearby, Maka subtly signaled, and his well-trained subordinates swiftly and silently surrounded them, forming an invisible protective circle, respectfully leading them towards the Rolls-Royce Phantom parked aside. The car door glided open silently, and Luo Luanzhua carefully placed his hand on the top frame of the door, waiting for Lin Ji to settle in before he circled around to enter from the other side. The convoy smoothly departed from the airport, merging into the evening traffic of London. The Manor's dinner was, as always, exquisite. The long dining table was adorned with flickering candlesticks and fresh white lilies, while the silver cutlery shimmered softly under the gentle light. The main dish for the evening was pan-seared foie gras served with port wine sauce, perfectly cooked, melting in the mouth with layers of rich flavor. After tasting, Lin Ji's eyes revealed a sense of satisfaction as she softly praised, "The steak is exceptionally well done tonight. The sauce is not greasy at all." Luo Luanzhua elegantly dabbed at the corner of his mouth with a napkin, and seeing her content expression, his eyes sparkled with deeper mirth. He placed the napkin down, stood up, and approached Lin Ji, extending his hand in a gentlemanly manner, creating a standard invitation gesture. his gray eyes appearing particularly deep and enchanting in the candlelight. "My dear fiancé, may I have the honor of inviting you for a stroll in the garden, to relish this rare, tranquil night?" His action was as formal as an invitation to a ball, imbued with an old-fashioned romance. Lin Ji was momentarily taken aback, but soon a sweet smile blossomed on her face as she placed her delicate hand into his broad palm, nodding, "It is my honor, sir." The autumn night garden possessed a greater air of haziness and tranquility than during the day. The silvery moonlight cascaded down like mercury, draping a dreamlike veil over the lawn. The thicket and the patch of white lilies, meticulously arranged ground lights nestled among the flowers and paths, emitted a soft glow, guiding their way. The air was cool, imbued with the refreshing scent of earth, grass, and evening primrose, invigorating to the senses. Luo Luanzhou removed his suit jacket and, without allowing refusal, draped it over Lin Ji's shoulders, then naturally took her hand, placing it in the pocket of his coat to keep it warm. They strolled leisurely along the winding gravel path, their footsteps barely audible. "Is it cold?" he asked softly, lowering his head to her. "Not cold." Lin Ji shook her head, drawing nearer to him, feeling the steady warmth emanating from him and the reassuring scent of cedar. She gazed up at the starry sky and then at the man beside her, her heart filled with a profound, yet simple happiness. Having endured life and death challenges and crossed the chasm of identity, walking side by side in this moment epitomized the tranquility of time well spent. They spoke little, merely walking in silence, occasionally exchanging smiles, their gazes meeting, filled with an unbreakable depth of affection and understanding. The moonlight elongated their shadows, intertwining, as if foretelling the tightly woven lives they would share in the future. In the distance, the lights of the manor's main house glowed warmly and brightly, resembling an eternal harbor awaiting their return. Chapter 54. Enveloped in nightfall, the tranquility and sweetness of the garden stroll lingered in Lin Ji's heart as she returned to her elegantly decorated and cozy bedroom on the second floor of the main house, which was distinctly different from the manor's overall luxurious Georgian style. This room reflected her preferences for soft, light tones, with the expansive floor-to-ceiling window revealing the lily garden bathed in nightfall, and a towering bookshelf filled with various physics journals and literature stood against the wall. After her bath, she donned a soft white silk robe, the tie at her waist accentuating her slender curves. Her damp black hair was wrapped in a towel, revealing her smooth forehead and graceful neck. She settled into a single sofa near the fireplace, where the simulated flame cast a warm glow, beside which sat a cup of warm milk, delivered by the maid to soothe her. She opened the latest issue of the journal Nature, engrossed in an article on the cutting-edge advancements in quantum entanglement, crucial for her imminent experimental project. The gentle light from the desk lamp illuminated the pages and her serene profile, casting a peaceful aura around her. Just as she became fully absorbed in her academic pursuits, the heavy oak door of her bedroom emitted a faint creak, pushed open from the outside. Lin Ji instinctively looked up, her gaze shifting from the dense formulas to the doorway. There stood Luo Luanzhou, leaning casually against the doorframe. He seemed to have just bathed, his usually meticulously styled black hair slightly damp, lazily falling over his forehead, softening his usual stern demeanor. He wore a deep blue silk robe, the V-neck design revealing a glimpse of his firm, honey-colored chest, the robe tied loosely, outlining his perfect inverted triangle physique with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. The hem of the robe reached his knees, beneath which were his strong, straight calves. He appeared to have shed all the armor and defenses of the day, exuding a relaxed yet aggressively masculine aura, his deep gray eyes in the warm light of the bedroom resembling a turbulent sea at night, locking onto her with intensity. Lin Ji was taken aback by his sudden appearance and the striking image he presented, her heart inexplicably skipping a beat. Flustered, she hastily closed the journal in her hands, instinctively clutching the neckline of her robe. "What are you doing here?" Her voice carried a hint of tension she was unaware of. Luo Luanzhou gazed at her slightly flushed cheeks and her wide, surprised almond eyes, a smirk curling at the corner of his lips, exuding a distinctly alluring and teasing charm. He straightened up leisurely, taking deliberate steps towards her, the hem of his robe swaying slightly with his movements, revealing the well-defined muscles of his calves. His voice, low and gravelly with a post-bath timbre, carried an undeniable hint of intimacy. "My dear Ji," he approached her, towering over her, his gaze heated. "Have you forgotten? At the airport, I mentioned that I would personally check if you have truly recovered." Lin Ji suddenly recalled his whispered words in her ear, initially believing them to be mere playful jest, only to find he was serious. She was taken aback, her cheeks instantly reddening like a boiled lobster. "Why you?" she stammered, instinctively rising from the sofa as his figure drew closer, attempting to retreat. "Don't come any closer." Seeing her adorable demeanor, akin to a startled fawn, Luo Luanzhou's amusement deepened, igniting a darker flame within him. He did not halt. Instead, he chuckled lightly, extending his long fingers to swiftly lock the bedroom door from the inside with a decisive click. The crisp sound of the lock echoed clearly in the quiet room, reverberating in Lin Ji's heart. Now, he regarded her with a leisurely gaze, like a graceful black panther eyeing its prey, announcing slowly, I am coming. Lin Ji, flustered, turned to dash towards the terrace connected to the bathroom. However, Luo Luanzhua, with his long strides, easily caught up to her in just a few steps, extending his powerful arms from behind to effortlessly envelop her in his warm embrace. His chest was firm and warm, the thin silk robe barely shielding her from the searing heat and the strong rhythm of his heartbeat. Lin Ji found herself tightly held in his arms, struggling for a moment, only to realize her efforts were futile. Embarrassed and indignant, she could not help but scold him. Why are you like this? You scoundrel. Upon hearing her scolding, Luo Lunzu did not react with anger. Instead, he let out a low, resonant laugh, a delightful vibration emanating from his chest. He rested his chin upon her delicate shoulder, inhaling the refreshing scent of lilies wafting from her hair, and with a voice imbued with magnetism. He audaciously confessed in her ear, yes, I am a rogue. Yet before you, I yearn to be your rogue. His words carried a lethal tenderness intertwined with possessiveness. Without allowing Lin Ji a moment to retort, he exerted his strength, effortlessly lifting her into his arms. Lin Ji gasped in surprise, instinctively wrapping her arms around his neck. Luo Lunzu cradled her, striding towards the grand four-poster bed adorned with opulent Egyptian cotton linens. His movements appeared domineering, yet he laid her down in the center of the bed with utmost gentleness, the soft bedding yielding to her form. Subsequently, he leaned closer, his fingers deftly reaching for the ties of her robe. Lin Ji's heart raced, threatening to leap from her chest. As she beheld his face, so near and filled with an aggressive allure, she resigned herself and closed her eyes, her long lashes fluttering like butterfly wings, her body tensing in anticipation of an expected advance. However, the anticipated weight did not descend upon her, nor did any further blush-inducing actions occur. She merely felt the ties of her robe loosen, a cool breeze brushing against her skin, followed by an intensely focused and almost scrutinizing gaze. With curiosity, she cautiously opened her eyes a slit. To her surprise, Luo Lunzu was not pressing down upon her. Instead, he knelt beside the bed, his deep gray eyes resembling the most precise of scanners, meticulously studying her body inch by inch. His gaze lingered on the faint scar at her collarbone, a remnant of a prior injury that had faded to a mere line. The skin at her waist that had once been marred by bruises now showing only the faintest yellow tint, and the small abrasions on her arms that had healed. His expression was one of intense concentration, his brow slightly furrowed, as if examining a rare treasure that must not bear a single flaw. His fingertips occasionally brushed over the previously wounded areas, ensuring the skin had regained its smoothness and elasticity, fearful of overlooking any remnants of unhealed injuries. He scrutinized her with such diligence and solemnity that Lin Ji's initial shyness and tension gradually transformed into an indescribable emotion. Watching his focused profile, she softly called out, Luo Lunzu? Hush, Luo Lunzu interjected, placing a gentle finger on her lips to silence her. His gaze remained fixated on her skin until he confirmed that all visible injuries had completely healed. Even the most minute traces had vanished. Only then did the tension in his jaw subtly relax, the faint trace of worry in his eyes dissipating. Then, he joined her on the bed, lying beside her, and drew her back into his embrace, pressing her back tightly against his warm chest. His arm encircled her waist in a possessive yet tender manner. He made no further advances but buried his face in the fragrant nape of her neck, inhaling deeply, before bestowing gentle kisses upon her earlobe, neck, and shoulder, kisses devoid of lust, more akin to affirmation, reassurance, and a silent vow. His voice, husky and earnest, resonated in her ear. Ji, before I can give you a grand wedding, before you are truly ready, I will respect you and wait for you. His embrace tightened slightly, as if to meld her into his very being. I wish for the world to know that you are my wife, Luo Lunzu de Sangdi, the woman I cherish above all. Listening to his heartfelt declarations, feeling his restrained desire and profound respect, Lin Ji was overwhelmed with emotion and love, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. This powerful man, accustomed to taking whatever he desired, was willing to exercise such restraint and cherish her so deeply. No longer hesitating, she turned towards him, and in the soft glow of the fireplace, she reached out her arms to wrap around his neck, lifting her head to press her soft, determined lips against his. This kiss, unlike previous passive or shy encounters, was filled with the entirety of her affection. Luo Lunzu was taken aback by her sudden, passionate advance, responding with equal fervor. The kiss was lingering and profound, imbued with love and promises, yet it did not cross any boundaries. In the end, they held each other closely, drifting into a peaceful slumber amidst each other's breath. As the night deepened, the glow of the fireplace gradually dimmed. Luo Lunzu awoke before dawn, illuminated by the soft morning light filtering through the window, gazing at Lin Ji, who lay peacefully asleep in his arms. Her serene visage, even breaths, and a hint of rosy happiness on her cheeks filled him with an unprecedented sense of bliss. He gently brushed aside the stray strands of hair from her forehead, his fingertips lingering on her smooth cheek, his heart swelling with an overwhelming happiness. In his heart, he silently vowed to the brightening sky beyond the window, in this lifetime. I shall protect her, love her as my own life, and never betray her. Chapter 55. Sudden news. The expansive glass windows of the Cavendish Laboratory at the University of Cambridge sliced through the crisp autumn sunlight, casting orderly geometric shapes upon the pristine laboratory surface. The air was imbued with a distinctive sense of disinfectant, the chill of liquid nitrogen, the subtle warmth of electronic instruments, and the aroma of printer ink. Lin Ji, clad in a fitted lab coat with her long hair neatly tied back, was wholly engrossed in operating a low-temperature strong magnetic field measuring system. Her gaze was fixed upon the screen, where data streams fluctuated and coalesced into curves, her fingertips deftly entering commands on the control panel with remarkable precision. Returning to her familiar research domain felt akin to a fish returning to the ocean. The complex formulas, intricate experimental designs, and the physical laws awaiting revelation constructed a pure and reassuring fortress. The project had indeed entered a critical phase of data collection and analysis, where each sample measurement and parameter adjustment could significantly influence the final conclusions. Meanwhile, although Luolanzu was immersed in the arduous and formidable family affairs spanning Europe and North America, navigating the intricate balance of power and the undercurrents hidden beneath the surface, his concern for her was omnipresent and meticulously attentive. Every day around 10 in the morning, her personal phone would promptly light up, displaying Luolanzu's concise yet unmistakable messages. Ji, remember to take breaks and drink warm water. Or during afternoon tea. Data is crucial, but your eyes are even more important. Take a moment to look outside. His messages were never lengthy, yet they adeptly pulled her back to reality at just the right moments, reminding her to care for her well-being amidst her scientific pursuits. Moreover, she never had to worry about her brunch. The meticulous estate butler, Mr. Stevens, would always ensure that exquisite food boxes were delivered to the laboratory on time. The dishes within the boxes varied daily but consistently catered to her preference for light flavors and nutritional needs, evidently instructed by Luolanzu to the Chinese culinary team at the estate. This feeling of being well cared for and attentively nurtured frequently warmed Lin Ji's heart amid her busy research, deepening her affection and reliance on Luolanzu with each passing day. In the intervals between experiments or during the idle moments while waiting for the instruments to operate, she would take the initiative to send him messages. Sometimes, she would share a small breakthrough from her experiments, while other times, she would simply capture the autumn hues of Cambridge through her window. Lorenzo could not always respond immediately. He might be presiding over a multinational video conference, listening to a confidential report from a regional supervisor, or dealing with some thorny issues requiring his personal judgment. However, whenever he found even a brief moment, no matter how fleeting, he would immediately call her or initiate a video chat. On the screen, his backdrop might be a solemn office or the interior of a speeding car, his features etched with unmistakable fatigue. Yet, upon seeing her, his deep gray eyes would instantly brighten, becoming soft and focused. He would inquire attentively about her experiments, listening patiently as she excitedly recounted intricate physics terminologies that he might not fully grasp. When she lamented about unsatisfactory data, he would soothe her with his deep, reassuring voice, saying, "Do not rush, Ji, take your time, you will surely uncover the key." That afternoon, Lin Ji had just completed the preparation of a complex sample and was at the ultra-clean workbench for the final packaging. Clad in sterile gloves, her movements were careful and steady. The laboratory was quiet, filled only with the low hum of the ventilation system and the distant whir of a centrifuge. At that moment, the low murmurs of two British colleagues nearby drifted into her ears. "Have you heard? Lord Wentworth has passed away." "Really? How sudden?" "I saw the obituary in the Times. It said he succumbed to illness from overwork." "Ah, who knows? The Wentworth family has had a rough few years. The alliance with the Fairfax family fell through, and they suffered significant losses. I heard their investments in the North Sea have also encountered problems. Now, the family must be taken over by a new heir, right? It seems to be Arthur." "Yes, Arthur Wentworth. He should be addressed as the Earl of Wentworth now. To bear the weight of a family at such a young age, the pressure must be immense." The name Arthur stirred ripples in Lin Ji's heart, akin to a stone cast into a tranquil lake. Her hands faltered imperceptibly. She was indeed engrossed in her research, almost entirely shielding herself from external information unrelated to her work, utterly unaware of such upheaval occurring outside. Arthur had lost his father? This news struck her with astonishment, accompanied by a surge of complex emotions. She involuntarily thought of Arthur, the once gentleman who had offered her invaluable assistance in her time of need. Since the matter involving Amelia and the Fairfax family, she later learned the full truth from Lorenzo. And at that time, she had even told Lorenzo that she felt his means of retribution were somewhat excessive. She remembered how Lorenzo's expression darkened in an instant, as he grasped her chin, compelling her to meet his gaze, his gray eyes revealing an unmasked coldness and dominance. His voice was resolute. "Ji, remember, anyone who attempts to harm you must pay a price beyond their imagination. This is my bottom line, and it is non-negotiable." His undeniable stance made her aware that there was no room for compromise in this matter. Now, Arthur had lost his fiancée and the familial alliance. And with the sudden loss of his father, the compounded blows must have caused him immense anguish. Lin Ji's spirits became heavy. She recalled the assistance Arthur had once provided. The memory of his despairing gaze outside the cafe, those recollections had not faded due to her relationship with Lorenzo, they were merely stored away with care. At this moment, as a former friend, she could not remain indifferent. After much contemplation, she removed her gloves and walked to a relatively quiet corner of the laboratory, retrieving her phone and searching for that nearly forgotten number in her contacts. She pondered her words carefully and crafted a brief message of condolence. Arthur, I was saddened to hear about your father's passing. Please accept my condolences and take care of yourself. Linji. Once the message was sent, she held her phone, feeling a twinge of anxiety. Seconds turned into minutes, and the commotion of the laboratory seemed to fade into the background. After what felt like an eternity, long enough for her to almost believe she would not receive a reply, her phone screen finally illuminated. The response from Arthur consisted of few words but carried a deliberate, icy detachment. Thank you, Ms. Linji. The overly formal address felt like a cold splash of water, extinguishing the remnants of warmth that once characterized their friendship. She stared at the message, momentarily stunned, then quickly understood. The invisible chasm between them had deepened beyond measure. Her friend had consciously drawn a line, no longer considering her a confidant with whom he could share mutual concern. A subtle sense of wistfulness and acceptance intertwined within her heart, and she sighed softly as she put her phone away. Meanwhile, in the city of London, within a time-honored stone building that exuded an air of gravitas, the office of the president of the Wentworth family business occupied the top floor. This office was decorated in a traditional British style, featuring dark oak paneling, heavy leather sofas, and somber ancestral portraits adorning the walls. Yet, at this moment, the atmosphere within was even more oppressive than its decor suggested. Arthur Wentworth, now the newly appointed Earl of Wentworth, sat alone behind a large mahogany desk. Dressed in a bespoke black suit and a solemn dark tie, his once lustrous golden brown hair appeared somewhat disheveled. His handsome face bore the marks of fatigue and sorrow, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble on his chin. The office was dimly lit, with only a green desk lamp casting a warm glow, enveloping him in a shroud of solitude. His father's sudden demise, rather than being merely a consequence of overwork, felt more like a collapse under the weight of successive blows. The failure of the alliance with the Fairfax family not only meant the loss of a formidable ally, but also entailed repercussions from Lorenzo DeSantis' ruthless reckoning with the Fairfax family, which ensnared the Wentworth family in its turmoil, hindering crucial collaborations and inflicting severe damage on their reputation and finances. It was under such compounded pressure that his father had succumbed, worn down and exhausted. He buried his face in his hands, and through his fingers, he could almost feel the coolness of his father's forehead, a wave of pain, guilt, and helplessness crashing over him like a tide. He loved Linji, a sentiment that had never wavered. In fact, it had become clearer and more agonizing in the wake of his losses. Yet, Lorenzo DeSantis stood before him like an insurmountable mountain, radiating an aura of cold authority. He possessed power and influence that Arthur could not hope to attain, capable of easily obliterating an ancient lineage and domineeringly drawing Lin Ji completely under his wing. How he longed to call Lin Ji at this moment and hear her gentle voice, even if just for a fleeting moment of solace. He yearned to extend his deepest apologies for the harm Amelia, that madwoman, had inflicted upon her. He knew that he bore an undeniable share of the responsibility for Amelia's malicious actions, yet he could not reach out. On one hand, there was overwhelming shame and helplessness. He felt unworthy to face her, unable to restrain his own fiancée, unable to protect her, and instead, allowing her to suffer such unwarranted misfortune due to his own failings. On the other hand, there was a deeper despair. Lorenzo's power loomed like an invisible web, ensnaring everything within its grasp. If he cannot become as formidable as that man, or even surpass him, what right does he have to compete? And what capability does he possess to shield her from further harm? His own family is precariously close to ruin. The flames of vengeance intertwine with the yearning to reclaim his beloved in his heart. Yet they are no match for the cold and weighty reality. He raises his head, gazing out at the overcast London sky, his eyes bloodshot, filled with deep entanglement, pain, and a dangerous obsession quietly burgeoning in despair, of which he himself remains largely unaware. He picks up a picture frame from the desk, containing a photograph taken years ago at Cambridge, where Lin Ji is seen walking under the colonnade of King's College, clutching a book, sunlight cascading upon her, her smile pure and radiant. His fingertips gently brush against her smiling face, and a lump forms in his throat, ultimately releasing as a suppressed, almost whimpering sigh. The office door is softly knocked upon, and the elderly butler enters, carrying a glass of whiskey. Upon seeing his master in such a state, a flicker of sympathy crosses his eyes as he silently places the glass on the table and quietly retreats. The amber liquid reflects Arthur's distorted and anguished silhouette under the dim light. Chapter 56. Entwined in London during winter, dusk arrives early. By 4 in the afternoon, the study of Hampstead Manor is already illuminated by the warm glow of crystal wall sconces. Lorenzo has finally managed to extricate himself, albeit temporarily, from weeks of grueling multinational mergers and the reconfiguration of power dynamics. allowing him a moment of uninterrupted time to spend with Lin Ji. The study is suffused with the rich aroma of cigars and the scent of aged books. Unlike his usual posture behind the massive mahogany desk, Lorenzo now sits side by side with Lin Ji on a wide velvet sofa by the window. Outside, the biting cold wind rustles through the barren branches, while indoors, warmth envelopes them like spring. Lin Ji curls her legs beneath her, a notebook filled with complex formulas spread across her lap. She is softly explaining to Lorenzo her latest breakthrough regarding an unprecedented quantum condensation phenomenon observed at specific low temperatures. Her eyes sparkle with an extraordinary brilliance when discussing her field, reminiscent of the most exquisite black diamonds. Lorenzo does not fully grasp the intricate physics terminology, but he delights in witnessing her spirited demeanor in this moment. One arm casually drapes over the back of the sofa, his fingertips entwined with a strand of her cascading black hair, while the other hand cradles a glass of rich cognac, his gray eyes lowered, focused intently on her slightly flushed face, as if admiring a masterpiece. So, if this data model is accurate, Lin Ji points to a crucial point on the paper with her pen, her tone imbued with the meticulousness of a researcher mingled with uncontainable excitement. We may have discovered a completely new state of matter, which will have profound implications for the field of fundamental physics. Her words are abruptly interrupted as Lorenzo sets down his glass and gently brushes his fingertip across the faint shadow beneath her eyes, his brow furrowing slightly. My brilliant scientist, while your research is of utmost importance, your body requires rest even more. His voice is deep, tinged with an almost imperceptible concern. Lin Ji, momentarily taken aback, is not annoyed. Instead, she seizes his warm fingers, her eyes crinkling into a smile. I just need a final data validation, and I can soon complete the first draft of my paper. At that moment, the study door is softly knocked, and the elderly butler Stevens enters, carrying a silver tray laden with 2 steaming cups of Earl Grey and an assortment of delicate English scones. He places the tray on the low table beside the sofa, bows respectfully, and quietly departs. This is the afternoon tea Lorenzo had ordered, well aware that Lin Ji often loses track of time when engrossed in her research. As they sip the warm tea, the atmosphere grows even cozier. Lorenzo watches Lin Ji, who is taking small bites of the scone with her cheeks slightly puffed, and an unprecedented sense of fulfillment fills his heart. He sets down his cup, tightens his embrace around her, resting his chin atop her head, and casually inquires, though his tone carries an air of subtle seriousness, Ji, what are your thoughts on our wedding ceremony? What style do you prefer? Should it be in London? Or shall we go to Italy? Or would you prefer a traditional Chinese ceremony? He is aware of her deep-seated fondness for tradition. Lin Ji pauses as she picks at a raspberry, her movements momentarily halted by his words. She places the fruit down, turning to face him, a hint of apology and negotiation in her expression. Lorenzo, you know my research project is at a critical juncture, and I truly cannot spare much energy. Moreover, my parents have their own commitments with the academy, and it seems unlikely they can dedicate sufficient time to prepare for such an important event. She reaches out to caress his brow, speaking softly. Could we possibly wait a little longer? Lorenzo gazes at her cautious demeanor, letting out a resigned sigh as he pinches her nose playfully, his tone laced with affectionate reproach. My brilliant scientist, when will you allow your gaze to rest a bit more on your man? Is research more captivating than I? Her childlike complaint brings a smile to Lin Ji's face, and she teasingly pinches his solid bicep, chiding him, you are mine, and I am yours. That has long been established. Are you worried I might run away? Her tone is playful, filled with utter trust and intimacy. Observing her in this light, Lorenzo feels as if the softest parts of his heart have been struck. He can no longer restrain himself. Leaning down, he captures her lips, which bear the essence of Earl Grey and the sweetness of raspberries. This kiss, imbued with undeniable assertiveness and long-suppressed desire, is deep and lingering, as if he seeks to consume her entirely, to meld her essence with his very being. Initially taken aback, Lin Ji soon softens under his fervent onslaught, her arms instinctively wrapping around his neck, responding with an awkward yet passionate embrace. When the kiss concludes, both find their breaths uneven. Lorenzo rests his forehead against hers, his gray eyes swirling with depth, his voice gravely intense. All right, I will heed your words and wait. However, he cradles her face, his thumb caressing her slightly swollen lips, his tone unwaveringly commanding. I will take charge of the wedding preparations. All you need to do is be my most beautiful bride. Though he agrees to delay, his actions show no signs of slackening. The very next day, he quietly embarks on meticulous preparations. He instructs Marco to contact Italy's most prestigious haute couture bridal atelier, where the elderly chief designer, nearing 70, personally travels to London with a team to tailor a gown for Lin Ji. They present numerous design sketches for the wedding dress, each lace and pearl meticulously crafted. Simultaneously, he commissions London's top jeweler to utilize rare pink diamonds and Colombian emeralds from the family vault, crafted and set by the most skilled artisans, to create a unique set of wedding jewelry. He even thoughtfully considers the attire for Lin Ji's parents, sending over catalogs from top-tier Chinese formal wear brands for their selection. All of this unfolds under his careful control, conducted discreetly and efficiently, like weaving an exquisite and luxurious web, poised to present his beloved to the world in due time. Meanwhile, on the other side of the London financial district, the atmosphere at the Wentworth Group headquarters is starkly different. Arthur Wentworth's office is now more austere than before, with a massive floor-to-ceiling window offering a view of the Great Thames. He stands before the window, his silhouette tall yet exuding a lone wolf's ferocity. The sudden passing of his father and the heavy burden of family responsibilities extinguished the last remnants of the gentle temperament that once characterized the Cambridge scholar, replacing it with a cold hardness born of desperation. He had just concluded a protracted and arduous board meeting, successfully advancing several radical restructuring proposals, even resorting to the sale of some non-core family assets. He had utilized connections and methods he once scorned, navigating the murky waters to secure the urgently needed cash flow and market confidence. He understood that gentility could not save the Wentworth family, nor could it sway that man in the slightest. Sir, a preliminary agreement has been reached with the technology company in the Far East, and they are quite satisfied with our terms, reported the young assistant, standing respectfully behind him, a hint of barely perceptible awe in his tone. The new earl before him was far more decisive and ruthless than the late lord. Arthur did not turn around, merely responding with a cold acknowledgement. His gaze pierced through the glass, seemingly catching sight of the tranquil lily garden at the distant estate, envisioning the silhouette nestled in another man's embrace. His heart felt as though gripped by an invisible hand, sending sharp pangs of pain coursing through him. Yet it was swiftly replaced by a surging tide of hatred and resentment. He clenched his fist, his knuckles turning white from the pressure. The name Lorenzo de Santis was branded into his shame and suffering. He had taken away the woman he loved, indirectly caused his father's death, and forced him and his family into this dire situation. Just wait, de Santis, Arthur silently roared within, a fervent fire igniting in his eyes. I will reclaim everything that is rightfully mine. I will grow strong enough to trample you beneath my feet. She will return to my side, one day. He turned and walked back to his desk, picking up a confidential report on the recent activities of the de Santis family in the European energy market, reading it intently. Under the light, his profile appeared sharp and hard, and those once clear blue eyes now harbored only unfathomable calculations and icy ambition. The seeds of revenge had long since broken ground, voraciously drawing nourishment from the soil of despair, quietly flourishing. Chapter 57. The glorious summertime flowed inexorably, much like the ceaseless currents of the Thames, slipping quietly into the summer of the following year. The lilies in the estate bloomed once again, their pure white petals glowing with sanctity under the scorching sun, their fragrant aroma mingling with the warm air and the scent of the verdant flora. Lin Ji's year-long dedication to her research finally bore fruit. Her team's groundbreaking study on novel quantum condensates was published in the prestigious journal Nature, garnering widespread attention in the international physics community. Furthermore, due to its groundbreaking discoveries and potential significant applications, they successfully secured the highly esteemed Hopkinson Scientific Breakthrough Award for the year. Upon receiving the news, Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu, far away in Beijing, were beside themselves with joy. Their voices trembled with emotion during the video call, filled with immense pride and consolation for their daughter's remarkable achievements. While Lorenzo remained entangled in the vast family affairs, frequently traversing the globe to handle confidential matters concerning substantial financial flows and power balances, he happened to be presiding over a crucial multinational meeting in Milan when he learned of this news. During a break in the meeting, Marco quietly conveyed the exciting tidings, and a rare smile broke across Lorenzo's typically stern visage, his deep gray eyes shimmering with unabashed pride and joy. He even momentarily paused the meeting for 10 minutes. Standing alone by the grand floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the spire of the Milan Cathedral, and dialed Lin Ji for an international call. His voice, transmitted through the ether, carried an undertone of barely concealed excitement. My Ji, I knew you were destined to be the brightest star. These simple words resonated deeper than any florid praise could ever convey, stirring Lin Ji's heart. To commemorate this momentous occasion and inspire more researchers, the Hopkinson Scientific Breakthrough Award ceremony was scheduled to be held at the historic Somerset House in London. This magnificent edifice along the banks of the Thames was a neoclassical masterpiece, both solemn and elegant. In addition to the honor and prize associated with the award, the ceremony also welcomed a significant donation from the de Santis Group, specifically allocated to reward the awarded researchers and to establish a new fund to support future promising fundamental scientific research. Lorenzo de Santis himself would be a special guest, personally presenting awards to some of the recipients. On the eve of the ceremony, in the master bedroom of Hampstead Manor, Lin Ji had just finished her bath. Clad in a silk nightgown, her face aglow with excitement, she gazed at Lorenzo, who had just completed his tasks, appearing slightly fatigued yet still focused on her, and her heart brimmed with love and gratitude. She stepped forward, rose onto her toes, and planted a heartfelt kiss on his lips, her voice imbued with sweet reward. Lorenzo, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for scientific research. Lorenzo was pleasantly surprised by her sudden display of affection. He enveloped her waist, preventing her retreat, his gray eyes sparkling with a playful delight as he teased, "Is that all? My scientist, you think a single kiss is sufficient to appease me? I've contributed a small fortune to the cause of science." Lin Ji shot him an annoyed glare, her cheeks flushing deeper with a hint of playful reproach. Before leaning in once more to bestow several kisses upon his lips and cheeks, her voice muffled, "Is that enough? Greedy, you're insufferable." Lorenzo chuckled deeply, the sound resonating through his chest. Finally content, he tightened his embrace, kissing her deeply until they both gasped for breath. He rested his forehead against hers, his voice husky. "Now that is more like it. Tomorrow, my glory will be shared with you." The next day, the summer sun shone particularly generously, gilding the sandstone exterior of Somerset House. The ancient courtyard was a verdant expanse, with a massive sycamore casting dappled shadows. The ceremony took place in the most opulent banquet hall within the estate. Its tall dome adorned with exquisite murals, crystal chandeliers refracting brilliant light, and a heavy crimson carpet absorbing all noise, creating a solemn and dignified atmosphere. The hall was filled to capacity, gathering top scientists, academic luminaries, social elites, and media journalists from around the globe. The gentlemen donned sharp tailcoats or dark suits, while the ladies wore elegant evening gowns, creating a dazzling array of attire. Lin Ji and her team members occupied the front row, where she wore a custom-made champagne-colored knee-length dress, its simple yet graceful design perfectly complementing her refined demeanor and slender figure. Her long, dark hair was styled into an elegant updo, revealing her smooth forehead and graceful neck, her makeup light yet brightening her countenance, embodying both the wisdom of a scientist and the delicate charm of a young woman. Lorenzo, on the other hand, donned a classic black velvet tuxedo by Tom Ford, the peaked lapel emphasizing his broad shoulders and narrow waist, his bow tie meticulously arranged. Simply standing there, without uttering a word, his innate regal aura attracted numerous curious and reverential glances. He leaned slightly towards Lin Ji, whispering in her ear, his warm breath brushing against her earlobe. "I'll go prepare backstage. I'll be back shortly." His voice, even in such a setting, carried an air of assured composure. Lin Ji nodded, watching him stride away behind the side curtains, her heart sweetly fluttering. As she settled into her seat, Sophie leaned in excitedly and whispered, "Lin, have you heard? Besides Mr. DeSantis, there seems to be a mysterious guest today. It is said that he has also donated a substantial sum, but this was kept under wraps until now." Another colleague from Germany joined the conversation, curiosity evident in their tone. "Indeed, the committee's secrecy suggests that this individual must be extraordinary. Mr. DeSantis' presence is already astonishing. Who would have thought there would be an additional surprise?" Listening to her colleague's chatter, Lin Ji felt a smile rise unbidden to her lips, naturally assuming they referred to Lorenzo. His generous support for scientific research, alongside his personal attendance at the award ceremony, filled her with a sense of pride and gratitude. Soon, the ceremony commenced officially. The chairman, a venerable fellow of the Royal Society, delivered an impassioned opening speech, reflecting on the significance of the awards. He expressed sincere gratitude towards the principal donor, the DeSantis Group, commending Mr. Lorenzo DeSantis as a visionary entrepreneur who ardently supports fundamental scientific research. The audience erupted into enthusiastic applause. However, just as the chairman was preparing to introduce the next award presenter, he suddenly shifted his tone, a knowing smile gracing his face. "Ladies and gentlemen, on the long road of scientific exploration, we are always grateful for every unexpected support. Today, we are immensely honored to welcome another generous benefactor who has provided critical assistance for this award and future research funds from behind the scenes. He is also a remarkably visionary entrepreneur. Let's give a warm welcome to our enigmatic guest today, Lord Wentworth, Mr. Arthur Wentworth." "Lord Wentworth, Arthur Wentworth." The audience erupted in hushed whispers of disbelief. All eyes turned, including Lin Ji's, who had been eagerly anticipating Lorenzo's entrance, her smile fading as astonishment washed over her. They all gazed towards the grand oak doors of the banquet hall, intricately carved and now slowly opening. Against the backdrop of the intense summer sunlight, a tall, striking figure stepped into view. He wore a perfectly tailored deep navy velvet tuxedo that subtly contrasted with Lorenzo's black attire. His golden brown hair was impeccably styled, and his features had matured into a more profound and composed visage since a year ago, shedding the previous melancholy and uncertainty. His brow now bore a hint of restrained brilliance and formidable presence. With a calm stride, his blue gaze swept across the room, ultimately locking onto the front row, where an Eastern woman in a champagne-colored gown turned pale. It was indeed Arthur Wentworth. His appearance sent ripples through the serene surface of the gathering, like a stone cast into a tranquil lake, instantly stirring a tempest. Who could have anticipated that after experiencing a family upheaval, the death of his father, and a well-publicized rift with the DeSantis family, this young earl would return to London's elite social and academic circles in such a grand manner? Moreover, as a co-sponsor alongside Lorenzo DeSantis, a chill surged up Lin Ji's spine as she unconsciously gripped the program, the paper crinkling softly in her hand. She stared at the familiar yet unfamiliar figure, her mind blank. Sophie and the other colleagues gasped in shock, exchanging glances between Arthur and the now pale Lin Ji, their eyes brimming with disbelief and curiosity. The atmosphere in the banquet hall shifted dramatically, becoming taut and filled with a sense of impending tension due to Arthur Wentworth's unexpected arrival. Meanwhile, Lorenzo, lurking in the shadows of the backstage, watched the scene unfold through a crack, his deep gray eyes darkening abruptly, resembling storm clouds gathering before a tempest, cold and sharp. Chapter 58. The confrontation at the award podium within the banquet hall. The once celebratory ambience of the academic event felt as though it had been abruptly frozen by an invisible chill. The crystal chandeliers continued to shine brilliantly, yet a strange coldness tinged their glow. The air became stagnant, whispers receding like the tide, leaving behind a taut silence that felt almost palpable, echoing the heartbeat of the crowd. All eyes were fixated on the two men, Lorenzo DeSantis and Arthur Wentworth. The host, the esteemed fellow of the Royal Society, was clearly unprepared for such a scene, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. He hurriedly grasped the microphone, his voice betraying a barely perceptible tremor, striving to maintain decorum. We are exceedingly grateful to Lord DeSantis and Lord Wentworth for their enthusiasm. Please, esteemed guests, take your seats. Our award proceedings are about to continue. Lorenzo's expression remained impassive, his gray eyes sweeping over Arthur with the coldness of Siberian permafrost. Ignoring the host's words, he languidly adjusted the cuff of his velvet tuxedo, an elegant motion imbued with the predatory calm of a beast poised to strike. Arthur matched his gaze with indifference, his once warm blue eyes now deep with turbulent emotions, defiance, resentment, and a hint of deeply suppressed pain. He lifted his chin slightly, showcasing the innate pride of the Wentworth heir, yet it seemed somewhat fragile in the face of Lorenzo's undeniable presence. Eventually, under the host's beseeching gaze and the silent pressure from the audience, both men slowly resumed their seats, positioned closely yet separated by an invisible chasm filled with tension. Lin Ji and her team sat below, acutely aware of the differing gazes directed their way, one from Lorenzo, imbued with an overwhelming possessiveness, steady and fervent, the other from Arthur, complex and tinged with unspoken anguish and obsession. She felt as if she were sitting on needles, beads of cold sweat forming in her palms, even as Sophie subtly grasped her hand in a gesture of comfort, which she could scarcely register. The awards for the preceding projects were presented in an eerie silence. Applause restrained and cautious, as if fearing to disrupt a precarious balance. Finally, the host announced the name of Lin Ji's team and the list of award recipients. Team members ascended the stage in succession, receiving medals and certificates from other presenters, their faces radiant with excitement and joy. Lin Ji was the last to step forward, the pivotal core leader of the project. Just as the host was about to announce that His Excellency DeSantis would present the award to the core winner of the project, Lorenzo rose gracefully. However, almost simultaneously, Arthur stood as well. A gasp of astonishment swept through the room. The stifled cries and sharp intakes of breath echoed throughout the hall. Cameras from journalists zoomed in on this dramatic moment, flashes erupting like a sudden storm, capturing these two influential figures in Europe as they openly confronted one another in the spotlight of the academic arena, vying for the same woman. Lorenzo turned his head, casting a cold, sharp glance at Arthur, a silent warning in his gaze. Arthur met his stare unflinchingly, the flames of desperation igniting in his blue eyes, the corners of his mouth curling into a faint yet defiant smirk. Almost in synchrony, they both stepped forward towards Lin Ji, who stood in her champagne-colored gown. Pale and bewildered, heavy footsteps tread upon the crimson carpet, emitting a dull sound that resonates in the hearts of all present. The staff of the hosting party is thrown into a state of panic, whispering to one another like ants on a hot skillet. Yet none dare to intervene and halt the advance of these two formidable figures. At this moment, when tension hangs thick in the air, a venerable professor seated in the front row hastily grasps the flustered host's arm, whispering a few hurried words. The host, as if seizing a lifeline, quickly lifts the microphone, urgency evident in their voice. A heartfelt thank you to both esteemed guests. As per protocol, may His Excellency DeSantis present the trophy to Dr. Lin Ji, and may the Earl Wentworth present the award certificate. Let us extend a warm round of applause to congratulate Dr. Lin Ji. This compromise barely breaks the stalemate. Lorenzo and Arthur's footsteps falter simultaneously, their gazes locking in an intense, silent duel. Ultimately, they each suppress their turbulent emotions, accepting the heavy crystal trophy and the gilded certificate from the hands of the ceremony attendant. Lin Ji watches as they approach her step by step, her heart nearly leaping from her chest. She observes the taut jawline of Lorenzo and the familiar, yet distant gaze of Arthur, her heart aching with urgency and pain. Instinctively, she shakes her head slightly, her eyes reddening uncontrollably as she silently pleads for them not to embarrass her at this moment, which belongs to her and her team. This subtle shift in expression acts as a powerful tranquilizer. Lorenzo, noticing her reddened eyes, feels a pang of anguish, the desire to crush Arthur being swiftly replaced by a sense of compassion. Arthur, too, detects her silent plea, and the glimmer of tears in her eyes tightens his heart, softening all his stubbornness and resentment in the face of her fragile demeanor. The two men almost simultaneously retract their outward hostility, silently completing their respective award-giving gestures. As Lorenzo hands the trophy to Lin Ji, his hand gently brushes against her hand, a comforting warmth accompanying his low, intimate words. "Congratulations, my scientist." His voice, though soft, resonates clearly in the ears of those nearby, proclaiming ownership. Arthur presents her with the certificate, his gaze lingering on her face for a fleeting moment. His tone gentle yet deliberately distant. "Congratulations, Dr. Lin Ji, you truly deserve this." He employs a formal address, attempting to establish a boundary. But the slight tremor in his fingertips betrays his inner turmoil. Lin Ji accepts the trophy and certificate, forcing a polite smile as she bows to the audience. Applause erupting once more, this time tinged with a sense of relief. The award ceremony finally concludes in a delicate balance. The awardees and guests gather in front of the backdrop for photographs. Lin Ji stands excitedly with her team, holding the trophy and certificate, their faces alight with genuine smiles. Lorenzo, however, remains in the shadows not far off, arms crossed, leaning against a Roman column, exuding a blend of languor and undeniable presence. Akin to a lion guarding its territory, waiting coolly. His gaze never strays from Lin Ji, as if the surrounding clamor is of no concern to him. Just then, Arthur collects himself and approaches Lin Ji, who is engrossed in the photography session. Lorenzo's eyes narrow, and almost instantaneously, as Arthur takes his second step, he moves with ghostly swiftness, positioning his tall frame directly in front of Lin Ji, effectively separating her from Arthur. He looks down at Arthur, his gray eyes glinting with cold light, resembling a wolf fixated on an intruder. Arthur halts, undeterred by Lorenzo's blatant hostility, and manages a sardonic smile. "Mr. DeSantis, relax. I merely wish to personally congratulate the great scientist, Ms. Lin Ji, and her colleagues on their remarkable achievements. Is this really such a spectacle?" Lin Ji, fearing a renewed conflict between the two, leans out from behind Lorenzo, her face adorned with a polite yet distant smile, attempting to mediate. "Thank you, Arthur. And thank you for your generous donations and support for scientific research." She deliberately emphasizes scientific research, attempting to redirect the conversation. Arthur gazes deeply at her, captivated by her brilliance, which outshines any moment he remembers, and his feelings of love and desire for her ignite like wildfires, further solidifying his resolve to reclaim her at any cost. He bows politely. "This honor is well-deserved. Congratulations again, Dr. Lin Ji." His gaze greedily lingers on her face for a moment, as if wishing to etch this moment into his memory, while Lorenzo stands nearby, a watchful predator ready to pounce. Lin Ji senses the tension radiating from Lorenzo, realizing she can no longer remain, and after all that has transpired, she feels a complex detachment towards Arthur, filled with both regret and uncertainty about the intentions behind his ostentatious appearance today. Enough is enough. Lorenzo can no longer contain himself. He swiftly pulls Lin Ji into his embrace, his arms firmly encircling her waist in an unmistakably possessive manner. He glances at Arthur, his voice icy and laced with an undeniable directive. "The congratulations have concluded, and the ceremony is over. We must take our leave. Thank you, Mr. Wentworth, for your congratulations." Arthur watches Lin Ji, securely held in Lorenzo's arms, noting her reluctant acceptance of the situation, and his heart aches as if being torn asunder. He maintains his composure, nodding silently, making way for them without uttering another word. Lorenzo, with Lin Ji in tow, strides through the crowd, flanked by silent guards, exiting the banquet hall without a backward glance. Arthur stands rooted to the spot, watching their retreating figures, his gaze lingering on Lin Ji's champagne-colored dress disappearing into the glow of the doorway, his heart filled with endless bitterness and loss. Yet, this bitterness does not shatter him. Rather, it fuels the ambition and obsession that have long filled his heart. He clenches his fists tightly, fingernails digging into his palms. He silently vows to wait. The last flicker of warmth in his blue eyes replaced by a chilling determination, assuring himself that this situation will not persist for long. Chapter 59. Honeyed moments within the rear compartment of the Rolls-Royce Phantom. It feels as though the bustling summer of London is utterly isolated from the outside world. The top-tier soundproof glass transforms the city's clamor into a blurred background noise, leaving only the faint hum of the air conditioning system and a suffocating heaviness in the air. The atmosphere feels as if it has solidified into amber, heavily enveloping the two occupants. Lorenzo reclines against the soft leather seat, his profile resembling a marble sculpture, cold and devoid of emotion. His deep gray eyes fixate on the rapidly retreating streets outside, yet his gaze lacks focus, the low pressure emanating from him seemingly dropping the temperature within the cabin further. He has not even loosened his bow tie, maintaining the meticulousness from the award ceremony, which adds an extra layer of distant authority. Lin Ji cautiously observes him from the corner of her eye, having never witnessed such an overt and sustained low pressure from him. After a moment's hesitation, she tentatively extends her slender finger, gently poking his arm, testing the waters. Lorenzo's muscular arm instantly tenses, yet he remains still, merely turning his head slightly to cast a cold glance in her direction, his eyes seemingly laced with ice shards. Before returning to gaze outside, his jawline tightening, clearly signifying his displeasure. Lin Ji felt a sense of vulnerability and a hint of grievance under his penetrating gaze, yet predominantly. She yearned to shatter the prevailing silence. She shifted closer, gently wrapping her arm around his, her voice soft and sweet, imbued with an unmistakable desire to placate. Luo Rinzua, please do not be angry. A clear, discontented huff escaped the man's throat, abruptly interrupting her explanation. He didn't even turn his head, but merely shifted his arm slightly, as if attempting to extricate himself from her embrace, though he ultimately refrained from forcefully shaking her off. Observing his continued indifference, Lin Ji steeled herself and began to gently sway his arm, resembling a playful kitten. She elongated her tone, exuding a charming innocence. I'm hungry, Luo Rinzua. I wish to dine on Italian cuisine, the same place we visited last time. Their black truffle pasta and tiramisu are exquisite. Luo Rinzua maintained his stony demeanor, fixated ahead as though he were impervious to her words. Yet, Lin Ji astutely noted a subtle movement from his other hand resting by his side, which then reached into his pocket to retrieve his phone. His long fingers swiftly tapped on the screen, evidently sending a message. Even from a slight distance, Lin Ji inferred that he must have notified Marco to secure a reservation at the upscale Italian restaurant that required months of advance booking. Witnessing his contradictory nature, his harsh exterior masking a tender heart, her earlier sense of grievance evaporated, replaced by a warm current and an irresistible urge to laugh. She pressed even closer, nearly adhering to his arm, tilting her face upward, her doe-like eyes glistening as she gazed at his stern profile, continuing her playful coaxing in a voice sweet enough to melt. I promise. I shall never speak to him again. Is that all right? Please don't be angry. You see, you're ignoring me. This tender yet slightly aggrieved assurance tickled the limits of Luo Rinzua's patience. He abruptly turned his head, and his deep gray eyes, once resembling frigid tundra, ignited with two flickering flames of subdued fury and overwhelming possessiveness, coupled with an undeniable helplessness against her charming demeanor. He could no longer restrain himself. With a sudden force, he yanked the garrulous little woman from her seat beside him, effortlessly positioning her onto his solid thigh without a word of protest. Lin Ji gasped, instinctively wrapping her arms around his neck to maintain her balance. Before she could fully comprehend the situation, Luo Rinzua leaned in, capturing her lips with fervor. This kiss was unlike the gentle caresses of the past. It bore the weight of dominance and undeniable authority, akin to a tempest sweeping through, engulfing all her senses. His tongue forcefully breached her defenses, intertwining and consuming her, as if he aimed to devour her very essence, seizing her breath and thoughts. Lin Ji found herself dizzy from this sudden, aggressive kiss, her body growing weak as if all her strength had been siphoned away, leaving her to rely on his embrace. Passively enduring this kiss laden with anger and fierce possessiveness, the unique scent of cedar and a hint of danger enveloped her senses. After what felt like an eternity, when Lin Ji sensed her lungs nearing depletion and began to struggle slightly, Luo Rinzua finally eased his grip, yet did not part from her lips. Instead, he lingered, teasingly nipping at her lower lip before concluding the nearly suffocating kiss. Their foreheads rested against one another, breaths heavy, his warm exhalations fanning against her flushed cheeks. He beheld her glistening, dazed eyes, listening to her rapid breaths, and an unusual emotion began to subdue his earlier fury, an emotion deeper and more unsettling. Leaning closer to her sensitive ear, he whispered in a voice husky and tinged with a subtle fragility, "My Ji, my star." His voice resonated like the lowest notes of a cello, striking at her heartstrings. You shine so brightly, especially at that moment on the podium, radiant and resplendent. I am terrified, truly terrified, of more eyes upon you, coveting you, fearing you might leave me. This almost vulnerable, fervent confession pierced Lin Ji's heart like a current. She had never conceived that a man so powerful, seemingly capable of controlling everything, could harbor feelings of insecurity and fear because of her. Waves of profound emotion and love swept over her, reddening her cheeks to the hue of a ripe tomato, even tinting her ears in a rosy blush. She vigorously shook her head, her arms tightening around his neck as she buried her face in the crook of his shoulder. Her voice imbued with post-kiss breathlessness and unwavering conviction. I will not, Luo Rinzua. I shall forever be yours, only yours, my beloved. This declaration acted as the most effective balm, instantly soothing all tumultuous emotions within Luo Rinzua. He tightened his embrace, pulling her deeper into his arms as if wishing to meld her into his very being, inseparable for eternity. They remained quietly entwined in the speeding vehicle, attuned to each other's calming heartbeats, as all misunderstandings, jealousy, and insecurities melted away in the warmth of their embrace and confession. The restaurant was nestled in a tranquil alley in the Mayfair district, its facade understated, yet its interior a realm of wonder. The warm yellow lighting cultivated an ambience of intimacy and romance, while walls adorned with handcrafted Venetian glass mirrors reflected the inviting aromas of olive oil, herbs, and grilled meats wafting through the air. Marco had evidently orchestrated every detail, guiding them to a secluded corner separated by velvet drapes. Delectable dishes soon arrived. The appetizer featured burrata cheese paired with tomatoes and basil. The main course comprised the black truffle pasta Lin Ji had specifically requested, accompanied by perfectly roasted Milanese veal shanks. And dessert was the classic tiramisu soaked in coffee liqueur and mascarpone cheese. Throughout the meal, the atmosphere had reverted to one of warmth and sweetness. Luo Rinzua attentively served her, twirling the pasta and bringing it to her lips, watching her eyes squint with satisfaction, while the corners of his typically stern lips bore a gentle curve. Perhaps due to the relaxed mood or the enchanting environment, Luo Rinzua unusually began to recount tales of his family history. He swirled his glass of Barolo wine, his gaze becoming distant. The DeSantis name, he began, his voice low, can trace its origins back to the Renaissance period in Florence. One of my ancestors was rumored to be the illegitimate son of a Medici banker, amassing initial wealth through astute instincts and rather dubious means. He paused, his tone calm, as if narrating someone else's tale. The family experienced its share of ups and downs, nearly perishing during the Napoleonic era, only to regain footing in South America during my great-grandfather's time, relying on certain special trades, before ultimately shifting focus back to Europe. When he mentioned special trades, his tone grew vague, yet Lin Ji could surmise they were anything but ordinary business dealings. Captivated, she could not refrain from asking, and what happened next? Next, Luo Rinzua chuckled softly, a complex glimmer passing through his gray eyes. That brings us to my father's generation. He diversified the family business further, but also made countless enemies. Most of my childhood was spent in rigorous combat training, financial courses, and constant relocations. He turned to Lin Ji, his gaze profound. Ji, my world is not as glamorous as it appears on the surface. It is rife with darkness, bloodshed, and betrayal. At times, even I find it loathsome. Lin Ji set her fork down and gently placed her hand atop his resting on the table. Her eyes clear and resolute. But that is merely a part of your world, Luo Rinzua. I know you as the one who would fill my garden with lilies, who respects my wishes, and who feels uneasy at the thought of my departure. Luo Rinzua, your past has shaped you, but it does not define how you appear in my heart. Her words were akin to warm sunlight, dispelling the last remnants of gloom from his eyes. He grasped her hand in return, their fingers entwined, genuine joy and emotion rippling through his gray eyes. Thank you, my Ji. This dinner concluded amidst warm and profound discourse. On the way back to the manor, the two nestled together, the atmosphere harmonious and sweet. The vibrant nightscape of London outside the car window paled in comparison to the light illuminating their eyes for one another. Chapter 60. Under the night sky and the stillness of the night, the main bedroom of the manor was illuminated only by a dim wall lamp, casting a soft glow on Lin Ji's tranquil sleeping face. She curled up in the soft bedding, her breaths even and deep, clearly lost in dreams. The excitement of the day's award ceremony and its subsequent ripples seemed to have not disturbed her peaceful slumber. Luo Rinzua gazed at her for a moment, his deep gray eyes reflecting an indescribable tenderness and complexity in the dim light. He leaned down, gently placing a kiss on her smooth forehead, a gesture as solemn as a seal, before quietly rising to tuck her in, his tall figure merging with the shadows of the corridor. The study was located in the east wing of the manor, starkly contrasting with the cozy ambience of the master bedroom. It was filled with a cold, authoritative atmosphere. Dark oak bookshelves towered to the ceiling, laden with various books and confidential documents. A massive mahogany desk gleamed like a mirror, adorned solely with an encrypted computer, a satellite phone, and a weighty brass globe. The air was thick with the scents of cigars, leather, and a chilling essence of power. Luo Rinzua did not turn on the main light, but instead illuminated an old desk lamp, its warm glow enveloping him in a solitude that exuded strength. He approached the large floor-to-ceiling window and gazed outside, where the white lilies he had planted for his beloved blossomed quietly in the cool moonlight, resembling a hazy dream, pure and serene. However, this tranquility could not quell the turbulent undercurrents within him. He retrieved a premium Cohiba cigar from the box, skillfully snipping the cap with a cigar cutter. The crisp sound echoed sharply in the quiet study. He did not ignite it immediately, but held the cigar to his nose, inhaling the rich aroma of tobacco as if seeking solace. After a moment, he picked up a heavy DuPont lighter from the desk. A sharp click followed as a blue flame sprang forth, igniting the cigar. He took a slow puff, the spicy, rich smoke swirling in his mouth before being released, the pale blue haze obscuring his stern features while accentuating the sharpness and depth in his gray eyes. Almost simultaneously with the exhalation of the first smoke ring, a figure emerged silently from the deepest shadows of the study, like a drop of water merging into the sea. It was Marco. He stood like a most loyal shadow warrior, slightly bowed, awaiting instructions. Luo Rinzua did not turn around, his gaze still fixed on the silent garden of lilies outside, as if conversing with it, or perhaps speaking to himself. His voice was low and steady, imbued with an undeniable, frigid resolve. each word carrying the weight of 1,000 pounds. Marco. Yes, sir, Marco replied immediately, his tone respectful and unflinching. Luo Rinzua took another puff of the cigar before speaking slowly, each word clear. Investigate Arthur Wentworth and the entire Wentworth family behind him, looking into their recent detailed movements. I want to know with whom they are conducting business and the flow of their finances. He paused, his gray eyes narrowing slightly, a flicker of cold light passing through. Especially Arthur Wentworth. Why does he seem to have substantial financial backing that contradicts his family's current situation? Who is supporting him? He turned to face Marco, his gaze piercing as if it could penetrate all facades. During this period, pay close attention and see if there is anything we can use as leverage, no matter how small. The term leverage was uttered lightly, yet it carried an unspoken threat. Understood, sir, Marco nodded, his head bowed lower, devoid of doubt, only absolute compliance. Luo Rinzua approached the desk but did not sit down. His fingers unconsciously brushed the cold surface of the brass globe as he continued. Deploy additional personnel to closely monitor any activity from Arthur Wentworth. I do not wish for him, or any trouble he might create, to disturb Xi's peace. His voice bore an unassailable chill, especially during the preparations for my wedding with Xi. I will not allow any unforeseen incidents or potential disturbances. Everything must be nipped in the bud. Finally, he lifted his gaze, his eyes sharp as they locked onto Marco, adding a command that brooked no argument. Moreover, I want you to investigate everything about the Wentworth family, and it must be done discreetly. Xi must not know a thing. Do you understand? Understood, sir. Please rest assured, Marco replied solemnly, his tone resolute. He was acutely aware of his master's protective instinct towards Miss Lin, understanding that these hidden measures were a necessary cost to ensure that pure happiness remained untainted. Go. Luo Rinzua waved his hand, redirecting his gaze out the window. Marco bowed once more, silently retreating into the shadows as if he had never been there. The study returned to silence, save for the quiet crackling of the burning cigar and the steady, powerful rhythm of Luo Rinzua's heartbeat. He stood alone by the window, the flickering cigar reflecting the depths of his current, inscrutable thoughts. The moonlight outlined his imposing silhouette, radiating a potent strength of control, yet revealing a hint of loneliness born of darkness and secrets. He gazed at the pristine lily garden in the night, yet in his mind, the image of Lin Xi's innocent, trusting smile emerged. He would not permit anyone or anything to jeopardize this treasure he guarded with all his might. Whether it be Arthur Wentworth or any other potential threat, anyone daring to reach for his Xi must be prepared to face his wrath. That gaze was deeper and colder than the night outside. Meanwhile, on the opposite end of London, in a luxurious penthouse overlooking Hyde Park, the atmosphere was entirely different. Decorated in a modern minimalist style, the space featured hard lines and a palette dominated by black, white, and gray, while the large floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the dazzling London nightscape. Neon lights flickering as traffic flowed, creating a picture of bustling yet detached prosperity. In stark contrast to this cold environment was the rich aroma of alcohol permeating the air, alongside a tense, restless energy. Arthur Wentworth had not turned on the main light. Instead, he relied on the hidden LED strips behind the bar for illumination, the cool blue light casting shadows on his handsome yet slightly brooding profile. He wore a deep purple silk robe, the collar slightly open, revealing his exquisite collarbone. As he sank into an oversized Barcelona chair, his posture appeared languid and casual, yet the knuckles of his grip on the wine glass were white, betraying his inner turmoil. In his hand, he held a glass of deep Bordeaux wine, sourced from the prestigious Chateau Latour. He gently swirled the crystal glass, observing the dark red liquid cling to the walls of the cup, forming viscous tears of wine, his gaze devoid of focus. The scenes from the award ceremony earlier in the day replayed in his mind like the clearest of cinematic moments, with Lin Xi standing on the podium, radiant like the most dazzling of stars. Beside her stood that man, Lorenzo de Santis, guarding her with an air of absolute possession, his cold, warning gaze piercing through Arthur's heart like a poisoned thorn. Especially the final scene, where Lin Xi was tightly embraced and carried away by that man, felt like a searing iron branding his insides, causing his very organs to convulse in agony. Jealousy, resentment, humiliation, and that undying affection tormented his reason like a venomous serpent, burning away his ability to sleep. He suddenly tilted his head back, drinking the remaining wine in one gulp, the rich aroma failing to soothe the burning in his throat, instead pouring gasoline on the flames of his inner turmoil. An assistant, an unremarkable man with piercing eyes that betrayed his keen intellect, silently approached, refilling his glass. Arthur did not look at him, his gaze still vacant as he stared out at the illusory splendor beyond the window. His voice, hoarse and low from alcohol and suppressed emotions, shattered the silence within the room. It is time to take action. These 5 simple words carried the weight of a final verdict, imbued with a sense of irrevocable determination. The assistant displayed no surprise or inquiry, merely bowing slightly, his tone calm and unwavering. Yes, sir. With that, he exited the living room quietly, closing the door behind him. In the vast space, Arthur was once again left alone. He set down his glass, leaning back against the chair, lifting a hand to press firmly against his throbbing temples. On the surface, he maintained the languid composure befitting an ancient aristocrat, yet deep within, tumultuous waves surged, currents roiling violently. He picked up a picture frame from the small table beside him, containing a candid photo of Lin Ji holding a stack of books, walking beneath an ivy-clad corridor, sunlight filtering through the leaves to illuminate her. His fingertips brushed against the face that haunted his dreams, a flicker of nearly mad obsession and twisted affection flashing in his blue eyes. He whispered softly, his voice barely audible as if it could be whisked away by the night breeze, yet imbued with an unsettling conviction. Ji, soon, very soon, you will discover who truly deserves to bring you happiness, who is worthy of you. You will return to my side. Outside, the dazzling London night continued to shine. Yet it seemed unable to penetrate the dark abyss overshadowed by ambition, jealousy, and obsession that enveloped his vision. Chapter 61. Lily embellishments in the midsummer of London. Sunlight streamed through the diamond-paneled windows of the study, casting dappled shadows upon the floor. The air was infused with the sweet scent of lilies and the musty aroma of aged parchment. The massive mahogany desk, rarely devoid of commercial documents or confidential reports, was instead adorned with exquisite fabric samples, jewelry design sketches, and a thick proposal from a wedding planning company. Lin Ji had finally stepped away from her intense research schedule, allowing herself to fully immerse in the preparations for her wedding. She wore a simple cotton dress, her long black hair casually pinned up, her bare face radiating more brilliance than any elaborate attire. Her delicate fingertips brushed against a piece of ivory white French lace before she picked up a design sketch for a ring adorned with rare light pink diamonds. Her eyes sparkling with excitement and happiness. Lorenzo did not sit behind the desk as usual. Instead, he pulled over an armchair and sat beside her. Dressed in a crisp, white linen shirt with sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing his strong forearms and the Patek Philippe on his wrist. He did not intrude on her choices, only allowing a knowing smile to flicker in his gray eyes when she reached for an invitation design featuring a lily motif. When she frowned at a particularly elaborate wedding dress design, he discreetly closed the book and pushed it away. Do you like this? He held up a hand-drawn sketch of a wedding gown, simple yet elegant, with the highlight being the meticulously hand-embroidered lily patterns in the same color scheme along the edges of the veil and skirt, echoing the beloved garden flowers. I had that old craftsman from Venice complete it personally. He will use the finest stitches to outline the lily's silhouette, adding tiny diamonds that shimmer from afar, revealing delicate details up close. Lin Ji accepted the sketch with delight, her fingers tracing the lifelike lily embroidery, warmth flooding her heart. He had even already arranged the flowers for the wedding, ensuring that various rare lily species would be the main floral material. From the napkin folds to the grand floral centerpiece in the banquet hall, pervading the air with the pure white and fragrance she adored. Everything, from the venue selection, ultimately established at a lakeside castle belonging to the DeSantis family in Italy, to the customized menu, a fusion of classic Italian and Lin Ji's preferred light Chinese flavors. From the guest list to the flow of events, Lorenzo meticulously planned in advance. This ensured impeccable luxury and top-tier standards, while also infusing her preferences, even cleverly incorporating elements of Chinese culture symbolizing a century of harmonious union. This thoughtfulness moved her more than any extravagant gift ever could. Lin Ji turned to him, her eyes shimmering with emotion. Lorenzo reached out, pulling her into his embrace, resting his chin gently atop her head. His voice low and magnetic. I promise to give you the most perfect wedding. My Ji deserves the best that the world has to offer. He tightened his arms around her, feeling her soft body pressed against him, an unprecedented sense of fulfillment flooding his heart. The two of them embraced in the sunlit study. Intimate and close, the very air feeling sweetened. To demonstrate the utmost importance placed on this wedding and Lin Ji's family, Lorenzo deliberately postponed all possible engagements for the upcoming week, delegating any unavoidable matters to Marco and the core advisory team for remote handling. He decided to personally accompany Lin Ji, taking his private jet back to China, both to formally meet and bring Lin Ji's parents and several close friends to the UK for the wedding, and to solicit the opinions of the two elders on the final processes of the wedding. As the private plane flew steadily at 10,000 meters, traversing the clouds over the Eurasian continent, Lin Ji leaned against the window, gazing at the cotton candy-like sea of clouds and the majestic landscapes below, her heart brimming with indescribable emotion and happiness. Lorenzo did not delegate any tasks to the flight attendants. He personally adjusted her pillow, draped a soft cashmere blanket over her, and poured her a glass of perfectly warm water. He even thoughtfully prepared an eye mask to alleviate the fatigue of long-distance travel and her favorite soothing music. Are you tired? Would you like to sleep for a while? He sat beside her, holding her cool hand, softly inquiring. His normally sharp, cold gray eyes now brimmed only with concern for her. Lin Ji shook her head, resting her head on his solid shoulder, feeling the rhythm of his steady heartbeat and the reassurance of his presence. Not tired. It just feels like a dream. She whispered, Lorenzo, thank you for doing so much for me. Lorenzo lowered his head, kissing her hair, saying nothing, merely tightening his grip on her hand. Everything was understood without words. After more than 10 hours of flight, the plane smoothly landed on the exclusive runway of Beijing International Airport. As the cabin door swung open, a wave of heat unique to late summer in Beijing, infused with the sense of dust and greenery, rushed in. Lin Ji immediately spotted her parents, Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu, eagerly awaiting her at the arrival gate. Despite her repeated insistence that they need not exert themselves to pick her up, her parents were resolute in their decision to be there. Upon seeing their familiar figures, Lin Ji felt a surge of emotion welling up in her throat. Lorenzo, perceptive as ever, sensed her feelings and gently wrapped his arm around her waist, offering silent support. He descended the gangway first, his posture still tall and composed. Yet he consciously tempered his usual commanding aura, appearing considerably more humble. Taking a few steps forward, he inclined his head slightly to Lin Ji's parents and greeted them in somewhat imperfect but sincere Mandarin, his tone imbued with just the right amount of respect. Uncle, Auntie. It has been a long journey. The weather is warm. It is truly kind of you both to come personally. Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu regarded their future son-in-law, who was impeccably dressed in a charcoal, gray-tailored suit, exuding a gentler demeanor befitting a younger generation. Upon seeing their daughter, who followed closely behind with a rosy complexion and sparkling eyes filled with joy, the couple's anxious hearts finally found solace. Not at all, not at all. Zhuang Mingshu quickly waved her hand, stepping forward to grasp her daughter's hand, her eyes slightly glistening as she assessed Lin Ji's well-being. Ji, you look wonderful. Even better than in the last video. Lin Yizhou adjusted his glasses, a reassuring smile breaking across his face as he nodded to Lorenzo, saying, Lorenzo, it has been a tiring flight for you as well. The atmosphere was particularly warm as the family reunited. After exchanging pleasantries, they made their way toward the airport exit, only to be momentarily taken aback by the sight that greeted them outside. Arranged neatly alongside the VIP passage were several sleek black Bentleys, their polished exteriors gleaming under the sun. Beside each vehicle stood two sharply dressed men in dark suits, equipped with earpieces, exuding an air of vigilance and respect as they surveyed their surroundings, forming an unspoken protective circle. A cursory glance revealed that there were at least a dozen of them, a stark contrast to the usual pickup vehicles surrounding them. Being educated individuals, Lin Ji's parents found themselves somewhat unsettled by this overt display reminiscent of organized crime families, their expressions betraying a hint of discomfort. However, Lin Ji had long since acclimatized to the security arrangements that accompanied Lorenzo's outings. She naturally linked her arm with her mother's and cheerfully urged, Dad, Mom, let us get in the car. It's hot outside. She opened the door of the middle Bentley, gesturing for her parents to enter first. Lorenzo opened the door on the opposite side for Lin Ji, shielding her head as she settled inside before circling around to join her. His movements were smooth and instinctual, embodying an age-old gentlemanly grace. Once they were all inside, his well-trained entourage swiftly and silently took their positions. The convoy set off smoothly, departing from the clamor of the airport and merging into the flow of Beijing's evening traffic. Outside the window lay familiar streets, while inside the car, the cool air conditioning mingled with the warmth of family reunion. As Lin Ji and her parents sat together, basking in this hard-earned happiness, their hearts brimmed with boundless anticipation for the future. She knew that the man beside her was crafting a stable and radiant world for her in his own unique manner. In the summer afternoon of Beijing, sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains of Lin Ji's parents' living room, casting soft patterns on the polished wooden floor. The air was imbued with the fragrant notes of jasmine tea and the lingering warmth of home-cooked meals, a stark contrast to the cold luxury of the London estate, radiating a comforting homeliness. In the living room, Lin Ji, Lorenzo, and her parents gathered around a small round table draped in a light-colored tablecloth. Spread out before them were exquisite brochures and schedules sent by the wedding planning company. Lorenzo patiently elucidated each aspect of the wedding, from the Western ceremony to be held in an Italian castle, incorporating traditional tea-serving elements, to the design of the dinner menu and guest arrangements. He had even prepared several different styles of traditional attire, blending Eastern elegance with Western tailoring, for Lin Ji's parents to choose from. Uncle, Auntie, take a look at this style of the traditional jacket, featuring Suzhou embroidery. The pattern symbolizes unity and harmony, a wonderful meaning, and the fabric is quite comfortable, Lorenzo remarked, pointing to one particularly elegant design with a gentle and respectful tone. Or perhaps this one, which leans more towards the Republican-era style, dignified yet refined. All sizes can be tailored to fit your physique, and the tailor will come from Suzhou. Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu listened attentively, their eyes drifting over the obviously valuable and exquisitely crafted designs, while also observing this distinguished yet unpretentious prospective son-in-law. They were deeply moved, sensing that Lorenzo was not merely going through the motions. He genuinely valued their opinions and aimed to ensure that the wedding honored both traditions and sentiments, allowing everyone to feel comfortable and respected. Lorenzo, your thoughtfulness is truly commendable, Lin Yizhou said, setting down his teacup, his voice filled with satisfaction. These arrangements reflect your consideration and also take our feelings into account. We genuinely feel at ease in trusting Linji to you. Zhuang Mingshu nodded in agreement. Her eyes misty as she held her daughter's hand gently. As Linji witnessed her parents' approval of Lorenzo and observed the focused and earnest profile of the man beside her, her heart felt as though it were brimming with honey, sweet and warm. She understood that every meticulous detail stemmed from his profound love for her. In the ensuing days, Linji enthusiastically guided Lorenzo through the bustling streets of Beijing. She visited former mentors and classmates, attended intimate reunions, and introduced him to several close relatives. Initially, when her friends, teachers, and relatives learned of Lorenzo de Santis's extraordinary background, they inevitably felt a sense of awkwardness and caution. However, it soon became apparent that this legendary figure was not as unapproachable as they had envisioned. He listened intently as mentors discussed academic matters, engaged politely in conversations at gatherings, though he spoke little, and even endured light-hearted teasing regarding his unfamiliarity with Chinese drinking customs, responding with a resigned smile, unperturbed. Observing Lorenzo's earnest efforts to integrate into her past life and seeing him gradually accepted by her friends brought Linji immense joy. Meanwhile, Lorenzo, watching her effortlessly engage with familiar faces and introducing him to street foods he had never encountered, felt an unprecedented, peculiar sense of happiness. This was her world, simple and warm, brimming with the essence of humanity. To witness and experience the trajectory of her life was an extraordinary gift and fulfillment for him. They indulged in traditional dishes near Gulu, sampled authentic halal delicacies in Nyojia, and enjoyed a sunset by Hohai with bottles of Beibinjiang soda in hand. Naturally, Linji made sure to introduce him to Doji, a fermented green liquid with a distinctive sour taste. When that peculiar drink was placed before him, Lorenzo's typically composed demeanor betrayed his first unmistakable expression of distaste. He frowned, cautiously taking a sip, only for his expression to unravel completely as he hastily took a large bite of the accompanying fried dough ring. Linji watched him in a fit of laughter, nearly in tears, exclaiming, "Ha, Lorenzo, you finally have your day? This is the essence of old Beijing." Lorenzo shot her an exasperated glance, pinching her flushed cheek playfully and responding with a resigned yet indulgent tone, "You little rascal, you did this on purpose." In the 2 days leading up to their return to England, they intentionally visited the Fangshan restaurant located within Beihai Park. Seated in the elegantly adorned hall, savoring the delicate and exquisite court snacks such as pea yellow, kidney bean rolls, and small corn buns, Linji's eyes sparkled with delight, her expression resembling that of a mischievous kitten. Lorenzo, however, consumed little. For the most part, he quietly observed her, captivated by the radiance in her eyes ignited by the delectable cuisine and the charming way she squinted her eyes contentedly while savoring each bite. A profound yet simple sense of happiness enveloped his heart. He even felt that merely watching her, witnessing her peace and joy, constituted the greatest fulfillment of his life. Sunlight filtered through the intricately carved wooden windows of the restaurant, dancing upon her face, rendering everything so beautiful it felt surreal. However, at that moment, Lorenzo's personal phone on the table vibrated inopportunely, its screen glowing with a ghostly blue light. He glanced at the caller ID, a secured number from Europe. The gentle smile on his face instantly froze, as if spring water had met the cold, swiftly turning to ice. He picked up the phone, offered Linji a reassuring smile, and softly said, "Ji, I need to take a call." He then rose and walked toward a relatively quiet corner of the courtyard. Watching his upright yet subtly tense silhouette, Linji felt a small puncture in her overwhelming happiness, as a hint of unease crept in. She understood him. If it were not for something exceedingly important or troublesome, he would not display such emotions at that moment. The call did not last long. A few minutes later, Lorenzo returned. The gravity on his face had not entirely dissipated, although he made an effort to conceal it. The depths of his deep gray eyes no longer held the previous lightness and joy, replaced instead by a calmness that felt oppressive, like the still waters before a storm. He returned to his seat, but did not immediately sit down. Instead, he reached out and gently took Linji's hand, pressing a warm and earnest kiss upon her smooth hand. Raising his gaze, he looked at her with complex emotions, his voice low and tinged with a barely perceptible blend of regret and resolution. "Ji, we may have to end our trip early and return to England immediately." He paused, avoiding the specifics of the matter, simply stating, "Uncle and Aunt may need to postpone their invitation for us to attend the wedding in England. I am truly sorry for disrupting our original plans." Linji's heart sank abruptly. She did not press for reasons or inquire what had transpired. She keenly sensed the seriousness of the situation through his expression and tone. Grasping his cool fingers in her hand, she nodded firmly, her voice calm, yet resolute. "All right, we will go back. I will speak to my parents." She swiftly and succinctly explained the situation to her parents, mentioning only that there was an urgent matter in Europe requiring Lorenzo's immediate attention. Although Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu were somewhat surprised and disappointed, being reasonable individuals, they understood the gravity of the situation upon seeing the serious expressions of their daughter and future son-in-law. They quickly expressed their understanding and advised them to be cautious on the journey, assuring them to get in touch once the matter was resolved. Without further delay, They set off for the airport almost immediately. On the return private jet, the atmosphere starkly contrasted with their earlier journey. Outside the window lay a pitch-black night sky, dotted with the faint lights of the city below, while the cabin lights were dimmed, enveloping them in a stifling silence. Lorenzo leaned back in his seat, eyes closed. A layer of impenetrable gloom shadowing his brow. He appeared to be in deep thought, or perhaps struggling against something within. Lin Ji sat beside him, gazing at the tension in his tightly pressed lips and the rigid curve of his jaw, her heart aching for him. She understood the weight he bore and the complexity and peril of the world he faced. Choosing not to disturb him with words, she silently reached out, tightly grasping his large hand resting on the armrest, transmitting the warmth of her palm to him. Her hand, though small and delicate, radiated an undeniable strength and companionship. Lorenzo felt her gesture. His closed eyelashes fluttered slightly. He did not open his eyes but instead enveloped her hand entirely in his broad, warm palm, the pressure almost causing her a slight pain, as if drawing upon some form of support. The plane flew steadily through the night sky, heading toward London. Lin Ji was plagued by an unsettling premonition, which grew increasingly clear in her mind. She was uncertain of what awaited them, but she knew that regardless of what transpired, she would hold tightly to the hand of the man beside her, facing whatever challenges lay ahead together. Chapter 63. The undercurrent of the night. The private jet tore through London's heavy night, akin to a weary yet vigilant black predator, landing on the private runway of Hampstead Manor. The terminal lights diffused in the damp air, casting a hazy glow that illuminated Lorenzo's stern profile and Lin Ji's lingering worry. The convoy awaited silently, transporting them towards the brightly lit fortress. The manor's main residence loomed majestically in the night, resembling a slumbering giant. The chandelier in the hall emitted an overly bright light, but failed to dissipate the sudden sense of oppression that had descended. Lin Ji had no time to remove her coat before she saw Marco's figure swiftly emerge from the shadows of the columns, his usually immaculate suit bearing subtle creases, and his face displaying unprecedented gravity. "Your Excellency." Marco's voice was low and urgent, and the moment his gaze met Lorenzo's, an unspoken multitude of words was exchanged. Lorenzo raised his hand to halt whatever Marco was about to say. Turning to Lin Ji, he softened the icy lines of his face, attempting to evoke a soothing ripple in his deep gray eyes. He reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair blown askew by the night wind behind her ear, the tenderness of the gesture contrasting sharply with the tense atmosphere. "Ji," his voice was low, imbued with undeniable warmth. "Please go upstairs to rest and take a hot bath." "All right. After such a long flight, you must be tired." His fingertips brushed gently beneath her eyes. "Do not think of anything. Leave it to me." Lin Ji's heart pounded heavily in her chest. She saw the urgency in Marco's eyes and felt the tension Lorenzo was striving to suppress. She was not an ignorant girl. She understood that whatever had compelled Marco to exhibit such demeanor and had led Lorenzo to abruptly abandon their sweet journey was anything but trivial. Anxiety coursed through her like a frightened rabbit, yet she knew that pressing him with questions and worries would only burden him further. She nodded resolutely, swallowing all her doubts and fears, and mustered a reassuring smile for him. "All right, I will go rest. Don't stay up too late." She gazed deeply at him, as if trying to engrave his figure into her heart, before turning obediently and, accompanied by the housekeeper, stepped cautiously up the curved staircase leading to the bedroom. Her silhouette was slender, yet it bore an air of feigned strength and stubbornness, until her figure vanished completely around the staircase corner. The carefully maintained warmth on Lorenzo's face crumbled abruptly, akin to ice shattering, revealing an unfathomable abyss of coldness beneath. He did not look at Marco but instead turned resolutely toward the study, his steps steady yet imbued with a formidable sense of pressure. Marco silently followed in his wake. The heavy oak door of the study closed behind them, sealing off all external chaos. Lorenzo did not approach the desk, but instead slowly walked to the vast floor-to-ceiling window. Outside, the garden of lilies he had planted for Lin Ji stood silent in the desolate moonlight, the pure white petals seemingly stained with the chill of the night. He stood with his back to Make, his tall silhouette casting an elongated shadow in the dimly lit room, seemingly merging with the darkness outside. He stretched his shoulders and neck, his movements appearing languid, reminiscent of a resting leopard. Yet the tautness of his shoulder muscles and the sudden drop in the air temperature heralded the gathering storm. From the inner pocket of his suit, he retrieved a silver cigarette case, extracted a slender cigar, clipped it, and ignited it. Each movement was slow and imbued with ritualistic significance, the crimson ember igniting in the gloom, while pale blue smoke spiraled upwards, obscuring the sharp contours of his jawline. "Speak." He inhaled deeply, his voice cutting through the haze, unervingly calm, as if inquiring about the weather for the morrow. Make stood a few paces behind him, his head slightly bowed, his voice clear yet laden with sorrow. "Sir, our 3 significant shipments in North and South America were simultaneously ambushed during transit and stolen. The adversary's firepower was formidable, and they were thoroughly prepared. We lost 37 of our men in the crossfire." He relayed a chilling figure, each numeral embodying a lost life and the shattered families behind them. Lalong's OS fingers, which held the cigar, tightened imperceptibly, knuckles paling. He did not turn around nor respond immediately, merely taking another deep drag, allowing the acrid smoke to swirl within his lungs, as if to suppress the sudden surge of violent intent. The study was filled only with the subtle crackling of the burning cigar and Make's labored breaths. And more? After a protracted silence, Lolongzuo finally exhaled the smoke slowly, his voice remaining steady, though taut like a drawn bowstring. Make swallowed hard, continuing his report. In the Middle East, the colossal oil field investment project we have been promoting was on the verge of finalizing the agreement. However, the other party's stance has recently become ambiguous, and negotiations have reached an impasse. It appears an unidentified force is covertly obstructing us, imposing numerous obstacles, and the terms have become increasingly harsh. Lolongzuo maintained his silence, approaching the desk to gently shake the ash from the cigar into the crystal ashtray, his actions graceful yet imbued with a chilling intensity. He lifted his gaze, his gray eyes gleaming like ice behind the smoke, piercingly directed at Make. Have you ascertained who is behind this? Make nodded promptly, his tone resolute. Based on all gathered intelligence, every lead points to the Wintewosi family, particularly ASE Wintewosi, whose recent activities have been notably frequent, closely interacting with several complex capital entities in North America. Oh, Lolongzuo scoffed, a laugh devoid of warmth, rich with derision and contempt. When did the Wintewosi family acquire such power to meddle simultaneously in my veins of America and the lifeblood of the Middle East? He sounded as if he had heard an exceedingly poor joke. According to our in-depth investigations, Make's voice dropped even lower. ASE Wintewosi appears to have formed a deep collaboration with a clandestine capital group in North America known as Mingi. This capital's background is exceedingly complex, intertwined with military, energy sectors, and even certain intelligence organizations. Most critically, we intercepted vague information indicating that ASE Wintewosi signed a secret agreement with the highest decision-makers of Mingi. Due to the agreement's high confidentiality, only the core figures from both parties are aware, and we are currently unable to ascertain its specific contents. Lolongzuo listened quietly, the derision on his face gradually dissipating, replaced by a profound calm. He moved behind the desk, but did not sit down, his fingers unconsciously tapping the smooth surface, producing a rhythmic, disquieting sound. A secret agreement, he murmured, a flash of cold light in his gray eyes. Then investigate, utilize all resources, and discreetly extract the content of that agreement for me. If necessary, he paused, his tone flat yet tinged with a hint of bloodlust, we may employ requisite measures. I am confident that within Mingi, there are individuals motivated by price or fear of death. Yes, sir, Make replied, resolutely accepting the command. Lolongzuo picked up the cigar again, taking a drag, the smoke swirling around him as his gaze turned cold and precise. Like a sniper targeting its prey, this time we suffered losses in both goods and men, and our dignity has been tarnished. If we do not retaliate tenfold, will not others think they can act with impunity upon my domain? His voice was low yet each word rang with iron resolve. ASE Wintewosi must completely understand that if he wishes to play with fire, he must be prepared to be reduced to ashes. His actions are tantamount to courting death. He looked at Make and issued his final command. Handle it. In America, find those responsible and uproot them entirely, leaving no trace. As for the obstacles in the Middle East, eliminate them by any means necessary. If required, he slightly narrowed his eyes, revealing a trace of the cruelty characteristic of a top predator. Political power may be employed. I shall personally visit that old friend. He owes me a favor. It is time to collect. I believe he will be more than willing to assist. Understood. I will arrange it immediately. Make bowed in acquiescence, no longer hesitating, turning to exit the study swiftly and silently, as he had arrived, to execute the impending storm of bloodshed. Once again, Lolongzuo found himself alone in the study. He gradually settled into the high-backed leather chair, extinguishing the remaining cigar in the ashtray, then raised his hand to firmly pinch his furrowed brow. A wave of fatigue washed over him, yet more prominently was a cold and resolute calm born from profound anger. The name ASE Wintewosi swirled in his mind, imbued with lethal intent. Initially, he had merely wished for this ignorant boy to vanish from his sight. But now that the other party had chosen the most foolish means of declaration of war, he would show no mercy. In his heart, a sharp and thorough countermeasure had already taken shape. He remained seated in the study for a moment longer, until the scent of smoke had dissipated significantly before rising to leave. He did not return to the bedroom, but first proceeded to the private bathroom adjoining the outer room. The warm water washed over him, cleansing the fatigue of long-distance travel, yet it could not wash away the gravity etched upon his brow or the chill within his gaze. He donned a clean bathrobe, carrying the crisp scent of water and lingering traces of cedarwood shower gel as he gently entered the bedroom. The room was illuminated only by a dim wall lamp. Linji was already fast asleep, her breaths even, though her brow was slightly creased, as if her dreams offered her no peace. Lolongzuo carefully lay down beside her, and as he extended his arm, she seemed to sense his presence, murmuring sleepily, her voice raspy with drowsiness. You're back? Lolongzuo replied softly, his arm tender yet firm around her waist, drawing her warm body into his embrace. allowing her to lean against his solid chest. He nudged his chin against her soft hair, his voice lowered to a whisper, imbued with an undeniable soothing power. Sleep. It's all right. I will take care of everything. In her haze, Linji seemed to grasp his words, or perhaps merely sought instinctive reassurance. Unconsciously, she turned towards him, wrapping her arms tightly around his strong waist, burying her face in the warmth of his neck, letting out a satisfied sigh as she sank back into a tranquil slumber. Lolongzuo held the woman who utterly trusted him, feeling her steady breaths and heartbeat. Outside, the night was fraught with peril. While within his embrace lay the sanctum he vowed to protect at all costs. He closed his eyes, allowing the warmth of her presence to diffuse a portion of his scheming, bloodlust, and burdens. Regardless of the tumult, he would ensure that no storm would disturb the peace of his beloved. Chapter 64. Turmoil. The night in London was soaked by a fine drizzle. The Hampstead Manor resembling a slumbering giant, silently breathing amidst the veil of rain. The heavy velvet curtains of the study remained partially drawn, casting elongated, dim yellow beams of light upon the damp grass below. Inside, the air was stagnant. The fire in the hearth had long since extinguished, leaving only the residual warmth of ashes. The rich aroma of cigars mingled with the scent of aged parchment and fine leather, creating an atmosphere thick with power and secrets. Lorenzo stood before the grand oak desk, his posture as upright as a pine, undeterred by the recent tumultuous events. He had just concluded a transoceanic encrypted video conference, his fingertips lingering on the cold satellite communication terminal. The final image frozen on the screen was that of a raging inferno in a South American port warehouse, accompanied by a series of names and faces meticulously erased. Marco stood silently to the side, like the most loyal shadow. He had just reported the final outcomes of the operation in the Americas. The 3 main ambush points had all been eliminated, 3 mercenary legions had been completely annihilated, and 70% of the lost goods had been recovered. The remaining portion had been compensated by the intermediary at 3 times the market price, with the funds having entered the designated Swiss account half an hour prior. Lorenzo nodded slightly, his expression betraying no emotion, as if he were merely receiving a routine business report. He reached for a cigar from the silver case, the motion of cutting the cap precise and fluid. A deep blue flame flickered to life, igniting the dark brown tobacco leaves. He inhaled deeply, the spicy smoke swirling in his lungs before being exhaled slowly. The pale blue haze obscured his sharply defined features, yet rendered his deep gray eyes even more piercing, akin to a hawk locking onto its prey in the dark night. Cleaned up quite thoroughly, he remarked, his voice low and steady, devoid of any anger yet imbued with an undeniable authority. He commanded that those involved in the operation be given a respite, their compensation doubled, and delivered directly to their families. Yes, sir, Marco responded solemnly, pausing to add, the message has been disseminated. The circles are now aware of what befalls those who provoke DeSantis. A cold, cruel smile curled at the corners of Lorenzo's lips. Not a smile of mirth, but rather a predatory satisfaction. Excellent. It is essential that everyone understands the fate that awaits those who extend their claws. He paced to the window, gazing out at the rain-washed lily garden, where the pure white flowers swayed in the bitter wind and rain, yet continued to bloom tenaciously. Next, the Middle East. It seems my old friend has forgotten my temperament after such a long time apart. Marco's expression turned serious. Sir, do you intend to go in person? Indeed. Lorenzo did not turn around, his gaze penetrating through the rain veil, as though he could see the land interwoven with yellow sands and oil. Some matters cannot be adequately addressed through a screen. I must meet him face to face and remind him of our friendship. His tone was flat, yet the term friendship carried an icy, sarcastic undertone. Ensure everything is arranged, especially security. It is imperative to protect G. His voice softened at the mention of her name. Understood. The manor's security has been elevated to the highest level, with 3 shifts rotating and all electronic surveillance and physical defense systems activated. No unfamiliar fly shall enter without your explicit command, Marco assured, his tone resolute. Lorenzo paused for a moment, extinguishing the cigar he had barely smoked in the crystal ashtray. Prepare for departure. We leave early tomorrow. Yes. Marco bowed and silently exited the study, blending seamlessly into the shadows. As night deepened, the rain began to subside. When Lorenzo returned to the bedroom, he had shed the scent of tobacco and the chill of the outdoors, replaced by the refreshing aroma of cedarwood shower gel. Lin Ji was not asleep. She leaned against the headboard, her gentle reading lamp casting a tranquil halo on her profile. A thick tome on quantum mechanics lay sprawled beside her, yet her gaze wandered, clearly burdened with thoughts. Upon his entrance, she immediately set aside her book, concern evident in her eyes. Is it troublesome? Lorenzo approached the bedside, sitting down and enveloping her in his embrace. Her body was soft and warm, carrying the faint fragrance of lily body wash, instantly soothing the coldness in his heart wrought by bloodshed and scheming. He did not answer her inquiry, but rested his chin gently atop her head, inhaling the scent of her hair. Gee, he murmured, his voice resonating deeply in the stillness of the bedroom. I will be leaving Europe for a few days tomorrow. Lin Ji's body stiffened momentarily, and she looked up at him, her almond-shaped eyes filled with worry. Where are you going? Is it dangerous? Lorenzo avoided specifying the location, instead caressing her smooth cheek with his fingertip, his gray eyes reflecting the depths of a turbulent sea. To handle some pressing affairs that require my personal attention. It is not dangerous, merely somewhat cumbersome. He downplayed the potential storm lurking beneath his calm demeanor. Promise me, do not step foot outside the manor until I return. The outside world is unsettled. His tone carried an undeniable demand, underscored by an almost obsessive protective instinct. Linji gazed into his eyes, which could pierce through everything. Yet at that moment only mirrored her reflection. She understood that his notion of unsettled was anything but ordinary. She nodded firmly without hesitation. All right, I promise you. I will not go anywhere. I will stay at home. Just in time. I need to start brainstorming the proposal for my next project. The materials are in the study. Enough to keep me occupied for a while. Upon hearing her compliant response and her proactive reasoning for remaining at the manor, the taut string within Lorenzo's heart eased somewhat. The icy demeanor in his eyes thawed, revealing a flicker of genuine warmth and affection. He lowered his head, resting his forehead against hers, gently nudging her pert nose with his, the gesture intimate and filled with tenderness. My scientist G is always so understanding. He chuckled softly, his voice resonating with a magnetic rasp, warm breath brushing against her lips. When I return, I will be the first to review your new proposal. Such intimate actions and words caused Lin Ji's cheeks to flush slightly. She playfully pushed him away, feigning annoyance. Who asked you to review? You will just mess things up. Seeing her feigned petulance, Lorenzo's eyes sparkled with deepening amusement, a pure delight derived solely from her presence, momentarily dispelling all shadows. He tightened his embrace, drawing her closer, as if to etch this warmth and tranquility into his very being, fortifying his spirit against the impending storm of chaos. They fell into a comfortable silence, simply holding one another, listening to the rhythm of each other's heartbeats and the fading rain outside, savoring the last vestiges of warmth and peace before the tempest's arrival. Meanwhile, in the city of London, at the top-floor office of the Wentworth Group, the atmosphere starkly contrasted with the somberness of Hampstead Manor, yet was equally rife with cold calculations. Beyond the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows, the rain had given way to clear skies, illuminating the cityscape with a renewed brilliance. Neon lights flickered, outlining the ruthless contours of Capitol. Arthur Wentworth stood before the window, a glass of whiskey in hand, the amber liquid swirling gently within the glass. He donned a deep blue silk robe, the collar slightly open, his tousled golden-brown hair betraying a hint of fatigue on his handsome face, yet the depths of his blue eyes burned with a near-manic intensity. He had just received a report from his assistant regarding the total dismantling of their stronghold in the Americas. The harrowing images displayed on the screen and the staggering figures of loss did not elicit even a flicker of fear or hesitation. Instead, they ignited a deeper hatred and a twisted sense of exhilaration. Swift action indeed, DeSantis, Arthur murmured to himself, his voice low and frigid, laced with a biting sarcasm befitting one who had long dominated Europe, striking with lethal precision and unrelenting ruthlessness. He tilted his head back and downed the fiery liquid in his glass, the burning sensation coursing from his throat to his stomach, oddly sharpening his senses. His young assistant stood behind him, his complexion pale, clearly shaken by the swift and brutal retribution of the DeSantis family. Sir, our channels in the Americas have been nearly obliterated. The losses are severe, and the people there are increasingly anxious, fearing the wrath of DeSantis will spread. Arthur abruptly turned, a glint of cold light flashing in his blue eyes, interrupting him. Silence. It is merely a loss. Why panic? He approached his desk and placed the glass down with a dull thud. Does Lorenzo DeSantis think this will intimidate me? Truly naive. A cruel smile curled at the corners of his lips. What he has severed are merely a few insignificant tendrils I had intentionally extended. Let him revel for a few days. Soon he will understand what true despair feels like. The assistant, captivated by the madness gleaming in Arthur's eyes, dared not speak further. Arthur inhaled deeply, forcing himself to regain his composure. He moved to the liquor cabinet and poured himself another glass, his fingers trembling slightly with suppressed excitement. What progress has been made with the plans regarding the river of the underworld? He inquired, his voice returning to a facade of calm, yet concealing a tempest beneath. The assistant stepped forward, lowering his voice to report, everything is proceeding as planned. The initial resources provided by the River of the Underworld are in place and can be activated at any moment via our clandestine channels in Eastern Europe. They are also keenly interested in the DeSantis family's energy ventures in the Middle East and are willing to offer deeper support. We await your final command. Arthur swirled the wine in his glass, observing the rich liquid clinging to the sides, a look of fierce determination flashing in his eyes. Notify them. The plan is to commence. He nearly bit out the words, each one laced with a frenzied desperation. I will make Lorenzo DeSantis pay an unimaginable price for all he has done today, by the time he is overwhelmed and consumed by chaos. His gaze drifted once more to the window, as if piercing through the distance to see that estate, that figure he could not forget. His voice grew low, filled with possessive yearning. It shall be the moment of true acquisition. Feeling the resolute determination radiating from him, The assistant stiffened and quickly bowed. Yes, sir. I shall arrange it immediately. Once the assistant exited the office, Arthur stood alone before the vast glass window. Outside, the vibrant life of London thrived. Yet in his eyes lay visions of a future interwoven with blood and fire, culminating in the embrace of Lin Ji. He raised his glass towards the void, towards that imagined Hampstead estate, silently toasting, a cold smile mingling pain, ambition, and frenzied anticipation upon his face. Night deepened as London silently drifted towards an unknown abyss, guided by the divergent schemes of two men. On one side lay a thunderous counterstrike and meticulous planning to safeguard the sanctity, while on the other thrived a frenzied obsession for revenge and hidden traps. Beneath the calm surface, dark currents surged, awaiting the moment to ignite, ready to ensnare all within the whirlpool. Chapter 65. The sea of sand. The private jet pierced through the clouds, revealing an endless expanse of golden sands below, the scorching sun distorting the air into wavering ripples. Upon landing in the exclusive area of Dubai International Airport, a wave of heat enveloped him. Infused with the desert's characteristic dryness and fragrant spices, Lorenzo did not linger. A convoy of 3 armored Black Range Rovers awaited him in silence. The motorcade silently departed the airport, steering away from the modern city of glass facades and steel forests, instead veering towards a concealed road leading deep into the desert. Ultimately, the convoy halted before a traditional Arabic-style courtyard, far removed from the clamor, surrounded by towering palm trees and tight security. The courtyard walls, constructed from heavy ochre stone, presented a low-key and somewhat antiquated appearance, starkly contrasting with the surrounding opulence. Only the piercing gaze of the guard at the entrance, sharp as a hawk, and the unapologetic display of weaponry hinted at the extraordinary nature of the owner. Marco was the first to alight, quietly exchanging a few words with the chief guard. Adorned in a traditional white thobe and red gutra, the guard respectfully bowed and signaled for the heavy wooden door to slowly open. Lorenzo stepped out of the vehicle, dressed not in a suit but in a finely tailored light gray linen leisure outfit, suitable for the desert's heat, yet befitting his status. A pair of sunglasses shielded his piercing gray eyes, but the cold aura of one accustomed to power stood in stark contrast to the surrounding heat. He walked steadily into the courtyard. Inside, a different world awaited. The cool air swiftly dispelled the heat from outside, revealing a splendid fountain at the center, its waters flowing gently, surrounded by drought-resistant greenery and flowers. The air was infused with the refreshing scents of agarwood and mint tea. The columns and arches were adorned with traditional Islamic geometric carvings, intricate and exquisite. He was led to a spacious reception hall, majlis, where the floor was laid with luxurious Persian carpets, and low sofas adorned with cushions embroidered in intricate patterns with golden threads surrounded him. True to the most traditional hospitality customs, there were no chairs. A middle-aged man, clad in a pristine white robe and similarly adorned with a red gutra, stood with his back to the entrance, bending over a brass incense burner, deftly tending to the charcoal and frankincense within. Upon hearing footsteps, he did not immediately turn but calmly added the final pinch of frankincense, watching the pale blue smoke rise, emitting a tranquil and distant fragrance. Only then did he gradually straighten and face Lorenzo. He appeared to be around 50, his skin bronzed from years spent in the desert, with deep features and eyes sharp and astute like a hawk of the sands, yet carrying a hint of worldly wisdom and mirth. He was Sheikh Zayed bin Rashid, one of the true power brokers and wealth holders of this land. "Lorenzo, my old friend," Zayed exclaimed, arms wide with a sincere and warm smile, his voice resonant and imbued with the rhythmic cadence of Arabic. "The winds of the desert have finally brought you to us. I thought you had long succumbed to the drizzle of London and the fragrance of that eastern lily, forgetting us old fellows who toil in the sands." His English flowed fluently, albeit with a slight accent, indicating a deep familiarity with Lorenzo. Lorenzo removed his sunglasses, handing them to Marco behind him, his face breaking into a rare, genuine smile. He stepped forward, exchanging the traditional greeting of cheek kisses with Zayed. "Zayed, your information remains as insightful as ever. It seems that a few flowers have bloomed in my estate, escaping your keen eye." His tone was playful, filled with camaraderie. Zayed laughed heartily, clapping Lorenzo on the shoulder, gesturing for him to sit. "Have a seat. Try my newly arrived dates and the freshly brewed mint tea. It will dispel this damned heat." As they settled onto the plush sofas, a maid dressed in traditional garb, her face concealed by a veil, silently presented gold-rimmed teacups alongside crystal dishes brimming with golden dates and various dried fruits. Marco and Zayed's chief guard discreetly retreated to the far corner of the hall, ensuring the privacy of their conversation while remaining ready to respond at a moment's notice. Zayed personally poured tea for Lorenzo, his movements graceful and traditional. He subdued his smile, and his hawk-like gaze turned serious. "You have come this time for the stalled oil field contract, have you not?" He gently blew on the rising steam from the teacup. "Recently, there have been some rather short-sighted insects buzzing around, proposing some rather unpleasant conditions." Lorenzo lifted the teacup, feeling the smooth warmth of the porcelain with his fingertips. He did not drink, merely swaying the emerald liquid within, his gaze calmly fixed on Zaid. Oh, what kind of conditions could possibly displease someone as seasoned as you? His voice was not loud, yet it possessed a penetrating quality. Zaid set down his teacup, leaning slightly forward and lowering his voice. The price proposed by the other party appears superficially attractive, yet the attached clauses are rather subtle. They involve certain rights of our family in key ports in the North Sea and North Africa over the next 5 years. Moreover, the flow of funds behind them is quite intricate, seemingly connected to some unsavory capital from North America. He looked meaningfully at Luo Lunzuo. I suspect this is not a coincidence. Luo Lunzuo listened silently, his expression revealing no surprise, as if everything were well within his grasp. His gray eyes were deep, reminiscent of the sea before a storm, concealing immense energy beneath a tranquil surface. It seems someone has overreached, he said lightly, his tone revealing neither anger nor pleasure. How do you intend to respond, Zaid? Zaid did not answer immediately, his gaze scrutinizing Luo Lunzuo with an intensity that seemed to pierce through his calm facade. Suddenly, he chuckled, shaking his head, a look of camaraderie emerging on his face, tinged with a hint of jest. Luo Lunzuo, he pointed at him, his tone considerably more relaxed. How many years have we known each other? 10? 15? I am one of the few who truly understands your temperament. Your visit today is surely not just to ensure that contract is signed smoothly, is it? A glint of cunning shone in his eyes. You, the lion accustomed to controlling everything, would not simply retract your claws if someone were to sneakily prod them, would you? No, that is not like you. Are you not here to toy with the fool who dares to snatch food from your mouth, like a cat with a mouse, before slowly playing him to his demise? Hearing this, Luo Lunzuo's lips curled into a subtle smile. The expression was not ostentatious, yet it radiated a commanding presence and confidence. As if all things in the world were merely pieces on a chessboard, he set down his teacup and leaned back, adopting a relaxed posture that exuded an even greater sense of pressure. Zaid, he began, his voice deep and magnetic, laced with admiration. It seems our thoughts are always in alignment. Upon hearing this acknowledgement, Zaid's expression transformed to one of genuine friendship, the previous seriousness and probing vanishing, replaced by an excitement for the game they were about to engage in. Since that ignorant lad from the Wentworth family has provoked you, let us entertain ourselves with him and vent our frustrations. He waved his hand grandly, his tone bold, as if this were merely a harmless diversion rather than a potentially tumultuous gamble. He paused as if suddenly recalling something, then curiously asked, by the way, when will you bring your Eastern Lily to meet me? I have heard many rumors about her. For our Luo Lunzuo de Santis to be so smitten as to personally cultivate a garden of lilies must mean she is an extraordinary woman. At the mention of Lin Ji, Luo Lunzuo's previously hardened brow visibly softened. He slightly raised his head, his gaze drifting towards the sun-drenched sands of the courtyard outside, and the indistinct outline of dunes on the distant horizon. In his deep gray eyes, a glimmer of tenderness and yearning flickered. Soon he replied, his voice steady yet imbued with a sense of solemn promise. Once she becomes my rightful wife, I will bring her to visit you, Zaid. Let her also see this entirely different land. Zaid observed the rare expression on his face and smiled knowingly, raising his teacup, to your Eastern Lily, and to the game we are about to embark upon. In the name of the Almighty, may all unappreciative obstacles vanish like the shifting sands of this desert. Luo Lunzuo raised his teacup as well, gently clinking it against Zaid's. The exquisite porcelain cups met with a crisp sound that resonated through the exotic hall, as if heralding the overture of some impending action. Outside, the hot desert wind continued to swirl, lifting fine grains of sand against the intricately carved window frames. Inside, the mingling aromas of tea and milk wafted through the air. Chapter 66. Hidden Moves in the Twilight of Dubai. The skyline was painted in a resplendent hue of purple and gold by the setting sun, while the Khalifa Tower stood like a gilded sword piercing the clouds. However, within a highly modern private club on the city's outskirts, the atmosphere starkly contrasted the brilliance outside. Inside the club's secret chamber, the air was fragrant with the expensive combination of ambergris and saffron. Arthur Wentworth, dressed impeccably in a deep blue suit, attempted to maintain the composure befitting an ancient aristocrat. Yet the anxious urgency burning in his eyes betrayed his facade, much like a stone cast into a still lake, causing ripples that were hard to conceal. He sat on a low couch adorned with intricate velvet cushions, facing none other than Sheikh Zaid. Today, Zaid wore a more formal black robe with gold embroidery, his demeanor exuding an unyielding authority, a stark contrast to the relaxed manner he had displayed during his previous meeting with Luo Lunzuo. He listened as Arthur fervently articulated the terms of their potential collaboration, especially emphasizing the exclusive clause that the Wentworth family would exclusively represent Zaid's family in developing the new oil fields over the next 5 years, while Zaid's family would immediately terminate all cooperation with the DeSantis group in this domain. The DeSantis family has become increasingly domineering in recent years, their appetites far too large, making them less than ideal long-term partners. Arthur endeavored to infuse his tone with persuasiveness, leaning forward slightly. We Wentworths possess a pure European lineage and a more robust political and business network, capable of providing you with a safer, more enduring assurance. Zaid leisurely toyed with a string of glossy ebony beads in his hand, his hawk-like gaze lingering on Arthur's face for a moment, as if weighing the gravity of his words. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice imbued with the steady assurance characteristic of a leader from an ancient family. "Mr. Wentworth, I have heard your proposal. Indeed, there have been some recent unpleasant episodes with the DeSantis." He paused, noticing a flicker of hope in Arthur's eyes before continuing. "Cooperating with you is not out of the question. However, you must understand that trust requires a foundation. Before we formalize any agreement, I need to see your sincerity. 40% of the initial deposit must be transferred to my designated Swiss account within 3 days. This is the rule, and it is the beginning of our mutual trust." A wave of elation surged through Arthur, nearly overwhelming him. To him, Zaid's deposit requirement seemed entirely reasonable. It was, in fact, a testament to the other party's willingness to cooperate. He quickly calculated in his mind the financial backing provided by the underworld, which was more than sufficient to cover this substantial deposit. As long as he could secure Zaid's alliance and cut off Lualunzo's energy lifeline in the Middle East, any initial investment would be worth it. Of course, that is only proper. Arthur immediately acquiesced, his tone tinged with an unmistakable eagerness. "Your prudence, your excellency Zaid, is thoroughly appreciated. The deposit poses no issue. I shall arrange it forthwith. Rest assured, once our collaboration commences, the Wentworth family will spare no resource to ensure the maximization of our mutual interests." However, Zaid raised his hand, interrupting Arthur's discourse, his expression enigmatic and his tone calm, yet resolute. "In the realm of business, there are no eternal friends, only eternal interests. With the selection of a new partner, the old must naturally be cleansed. You need not concern yourself with that." These words served as a comforting balm for Arthur, illuminating his imagination with visions of Lorenzo's plans in the Middle East collapsing, and of himself gradually reclaiming all he had lost, and perhaps even more. Suppressing his inner excitement, he finalized further details with Zaid before rising to take his leave, satisfaction radiating from him. Once Arthur departed, the heavy door of the chamber closed with a resounding thud. The air of authority and aloofness that had adorned Zaid's visage dissipated in an instant, replaced by a smile intermingled with mockery and intrigue. He approached the window, gazing out over the dazzling nightscape of Dubai, where the lights shimmered like stars, and retrieved a specially encrypted satellite phone, dialing the sole number it contained. Lorenzo was ensconced in the opulent royal suite of Dubai's iconic Burj Al Arab, the very epitome of luxury, where golden splendor met breathtaking views of the Persian Gulf and Palm Island through enormous floor-to-ceiling windows. He had just concluded a video call with Linji. The vast LCD screen displayed her fading image, clad in soft loungewear, with a familiar bookshelf from the manor serving as her backdrop. Her face bore traces of concern, yet was predominantly filled with reliance and longing for him. She rambled on about the growth of the lilies in the manor, the progress of her new project, and softly lamented his absence, even suggesting that the afternoon tea treats lacked their usual sweetness without him. Lorenzo, clad in a dark silk robe that slightly revealed the contours of his muscular chest, reclined in a plush sofa. During their conversation, the cold severity that had once adorned his brow melted away, leaving only a gentle focus and warmth. When she mentioned a particular experimental datum, he provided a precise reference from one of his high-tech material laboratories, which widened Lin Ji's eyes in astonishment. "Do not worry, Ji," his voice resonated through the microphone, deep and reassuring. "It is merely some trivial business matters that I shall resolve swiftly. You remain at the manor, awaiting my return." He paused, as if recalling something, and softened his tone with unmistakable concern. "By the way, your special day approaches. Remember not to indulge in the cold. Iced drinks are strictly prohibited. I have instructed Anna to prepare everything you require, warming patches and ginger tea. You need only to rest well, my Ji." Lin Ji on the other end appeared momentarily stunned, her cheeks flushing with warmth, her eyes misting with emotion at his thoughtful attentiveness, even from afar. Amidst the complex machinations surrounding them, "You remember even this?" she whispered, choked with emotion. Seeing her on the verge of tears stirred something profound within Lorenzo, a warm rush of satisfaction enveloping him. He chuckled softly, his voice laced with magnetic allure. "I remember everything about you, my Ji. Wait for my return." After ending the video call, the smile lingered on Lorenzo's lips, his deep gray eyes still reflecting the warmth of the moment. Rising, he approached the liquor cabinet to pour himself a glass of exquisite cognac, just as the encrypted satellite phone rang. He answered, remaining silent initially. Lorenzo Zaid's voice, laced with mirth, emerged from the earpiece, spoken in Arabic with an intimacy that suggested shared secrets. "The fish has taken the bait," eagerly, even without much bargaining. The deposit request was met with his full agreement. It seems the undercurrents of the Nile have indeed bolstered his confidence. As for severing ties with you, I reluctantly acquiesced. Now, we await the arrival of his funds. Listening intently, Lorenzo's expression remained devoid of surprise. He swirled the crystal glass in his hand, watching the amber liquid trace perfect arcs along the glass. A cold, Commanding smile slowly unfurled at the corners of his lips, akin to an exquisite flower blooming stealthily in the dark of night, imbued with a perilous allure. Excellent, Zayed, he replied in fluent Arabic, his voice deep and steady. You have my gratitude. Ah, among old friends, there is no need for formality, Zayed chuckled heartily. Now it is up to you. Should you need my assistance, do not hesitate to ask. For now, that will not be necessary. Simply maintain his confidence, allowing him to believe victory is assured, Lorenzo replied coolly, a glint of cold calculation flashing in his gray eyes. The remainder, I shall handle. After concluding his conversation with Zayed, Lorenzo drank the cognac in one swift motion. The spicy liquid coursed down his throat, igniting a warmth that only sharpened his clarity and composure. He pressed the internal communication button, his voice returning to its customary, emotionless chill. Marco, almost as if on cue, the suite's door slid open soundlessly, and Marco entered with the reverence of a ghost that had lingered outside, bowing his head respectfully. Your Excellency. Lorenzo did not turn to face him, his gaze fixed on the Persian Gulf's nighttime panorama, its lights reflected in his deep gray irises, yet offering no warmth. The time has come to stir the undercurrents of the Nile, which we have nurtured for so long. Teach them a lesson, nothing too grave, but enough for them to comprehend the pain and the repercussions of overreaching. Select a few mid-level individuals of sufficient weight, yet not irreplaceable. Ensure it is executed cleanly. As if by accident, Marco's eyes sharpened, instantly grasping the deeper implications of the directive, a warning, a deterrent, and a direct response to the Nile's support of Arthur. The objective was to inflict pain without fully severing ties, maintaining control over the conflict and leaving space for the master's future plans. Understood, Your Excellency. I shall arrange it immediately, ensuring absolute precision, Marco responded in a low voice, devoid of hesitation. He recognized that once the master's orders were issued, it would signal the commencement of a thunderous operation. Marco exited silently, and the suite returned to its tranquil silence, the only sound being the faint hum of the air conditioning system. Lorenzo stood alone before the expansive window, his silhouette tall and imposing, mirrored against the polished glass, overlapping with the wealth and power-laden world beyond that was dazzling yet chilling to the core. Days later, North America bore witness to a series of striking accidents. A senior vice president of Nile Capital, overseeing energy investments in the Asia-Pacific region, encountered an avalanche while skiing in Switzerland. Though he survived, he sustained severe injuries that effectively ended his career. Another director, responsible for managing some of the Nile's murky financial flows, perished in an explosion caused by a gas leak in his Long Island mansion. Additionally, a lobbyist closely connected to the Nile and operating on the fringes of legality was discovered dead in a Las Vegas hotel room from an overdose. These incidents, scattered across various locations, appeared disconnected, with investigations attributing them to accidents or personal circumstances. However, within the depths of the INA, as well as among the elite circles with keen instincts, a wave of clandestine panic ensued. Everyone was acutely aware that this was a precise and ruthless warning from a certain power. In an instant, anxiety gripped the hearts of those within INA, and several project leaders collaborating with USI-120s were rendered mute, causing the pace of the project to noticeably slow. When the news reached London, USI was in the midst of a small celebratory dinner for successfully securing Zaid. Upon receiving the hushed report from a trusted aide, the champagne flute in his hand nearly slipped from his grasp, his triumphant smile freezing instantaneously, while the color drained from his face, replaced by a chill that surged from his toes to the crown of his head. Lorenzo DeSantis had managed to inflict palpable pain upon the distant Inha without even showing his face. This game was far more brutal and perilous than he had ever imagined. Chapter 67. A cornered beast still struggles on the terrace of the royal suite at the Burj Al Arab. It seemed to hover between the azure waters of the Persian Gulf and the clear sky. The morning sun was not yet scorching, casting a lazy golden hue upon the pristine white marble floor. Lorenzo, clad in impeccably tailored light linen attire, had two buttons of his collar casually undone, revealing his well-defined collarbones and a glimpse of his firm chest. He did not sit, but rather leaned comfortably against the intricately carved railing, cradling a steaming cup of black coffee in his hand, his gaze drifting towards the distant white sailboats gliding across the horizon and the more nebulous skyline. He stood tall yet relaxed, akin to a resting cheetah, with every muscle embodying the potential for explosive power. The morning breeze tousled his hair, accentuating the unruly arcs that rendered his chiseled face even more striking. The sunlight gilded the edges of his deep gray irises, yet could not soften the innate coldness and sense of control that lay beneath. He resembled an invisible sovereign of this desert kingdom, orchestrating plans amidst exquisite luxury and tranquility. The sheer curtains at the terrace entrance were silently drawn aside, revealing Marco's silhouette. In stark contrast to Lorenzo's languor, Marco's strides remained steady, but a barely perceptible gravity lingered in his brow, clearly indicating the arrival of significant news. He approached a few steps behind Lorenzo, stopping and bowing his head slightly. Your Excellency, Marco's voice was low and respectful, tinged with the deference of a subordinate. Lorenzo did not turn, continuing to admire the scenery before him. Merely lifting his coffee cup for a delicate sip, the rich bitterness unfurling on his tongue. He responded with a faint hum, acknowledging Marco's presence. Marco stepped closer, reporting swiftly in a tone only audible to the two of them. Our contacts have just acquired intelligence regarding the nature of the secret agreement between Wentwas and Inha, which resembles a betting contract. He paused, his tone growing graver. Inha is providing financial assistance in the name of the Wentwas family, aimed at ensuring the final signing of the Middle Eastern oil field contract. The agreement stipulates that if Wentwas successfully secures the contract, Inha will obtain 60% of the future oil field profits and certain port rights. However, Marco inhaled deeply before continuing. Should they fail to finalize the contract as planned, or if substantial errors occur during the process that harm Inha's interests, then USI Wentwa not only must bear substantial compensation personally, but all properties under his name, along with the core assets of the entire Wentwas family, will be unconditionally pledged to Inha to settle the debt. A brief silence enveloped the terrace, broken only by the distant calls of seagulls and the gentle rustling of the curtains in the breeze. Upon hearing this, Lorenzo's fingers, which held the coffee cup, twitched ever so slightly. He then lowered his head, emitting a barely audible laugh, filled with unmasked derision and scorn. The sound was deep and metallic, resonating clearly in the vastness of the terrace. He slowly turned, his deep gray eyes betraying no emotion, merely a disdainful detachment, as if observing a poorly staged farce. To wager the legacy of an entire family for the sake of a nebulous scheme to topple me, USI Wentwa, he uttered the name with a flat tone, akin to pronouncing a preordained verdict. Should I commend his bravery or deem him irredeemably foolish? He set down the coffee cup, the base clinking crisply against the marble surface. He walked to the edge of the terrace, gracefully sitting beside a white chaise lounge, one arm casually draped over his bent knee, the other resting on the lounge. The sunlight enveloped him. Beneath the veneer of languor and ease lay an unfathomable depth of calculation and an unwavering confidence in his control. Overreaching, he uttered, his lips parting to release those four icy words, as if delivering a final decree. After a moment of contemplation, Lorenzo lifted his gaze. His eyes piercingly sharp as they fixed on Marco, akin to the most precise sword, instantly slicing through all obscurity to strike at the core. Since he is so eager to plunge into this perilous pit, why not assist him by adding some fuel to the fire? His voice was not loud, yet it resonated with undeniable decisiveness. Apply additional pressure on Inha. Economically, utilize our extensive network to disrupt their key investment projects in North America and Asia. Politically, subtly leak evidence of their dealings with certain sensitive individuals to those individuals' adversaries. As for personal safety, he paused, a glint of icy resolve flashing in his gray eyes. Let the remaining few significant leaders experience the taste of sleepless nights. Their lives need not be taken, but they must feel the breath of death looming ominously behind them. Marco's expression sharpened, instantly comprehending his master's intent. This was to force Inha into a corner, transferring all pressure and anxiety squarely onto their sole hope, USI Wentwa. Yes, Your Excellency. I will arrange it immediately, employing a multifaceted approach to ensure Inha feels a sufficient sense of urgency, Marco replied gravely. Lorenzo nodded slightly, satisfaction flickering across his lips in a faint yet chilling smile. When Inha is driven to the brink, their only recourse will be to frantically urge their chosen representative, at any cost, to expedite the signing of the contract to mitigate losses and validate the investment's worth. His fingers tapped rhythmically against his knee, as if composing an invisible symphony of slaughter. At that moment, USI Wentwa would find himself akin to an ant roasting over flames, scrambling in desperation. He turned to Marco, issuing his final directive. Inform Zaid that when the time is ripe, he may appropriately suggest that the DeSantis Group has also raised its quote and deposit requirements. Of course, this is fabricated. To demonstrate sincerity and competitiveness, he should request that Wentwas also elevate the deposit to twice the original amount. However, various reasonable excuses must be devised to delay the formal signing of the contract, such as requiring more detailed qualification reviews or awaiting the final approval from a key royal figure, or even citing the imminent arrival of Ramadan and other traditional customs as reasons to procrastinate. A cruel glint danced in Lorenzo's eyes, reflecting a near-masochistic pleasure in watching his prey gradually succumb to the trap, struggling in despair. I wish to see the expression on his face when he realizes he has staked the fate of his entire family and amassed a substantial deposit, yet can only watch helplessly as the contract dangles in the air, forever out of reach. It will surely be quite entertaining. Understood. In the heart of Make, a profound sense of reverence arose within him, stirred by his master's precise and ruthless machinations. This was not merely an endeavor to dismantle Yace Wenawosi's aspirations. It was a calculated effort to obliterate his dignity and hopes psychologically, subjecting him to the most profound agony and despair. He ceased to speak further, bowed deeply, and swiftly turned away, his figure disappearing rapidly at the entrance of the terrace to execute commands that would unleash a tempest of greater ferocity. The terrace fell silent once more, and Lorenzo redirected his gaze towards the azure expanse of the sea, where sunlight cast deep shadows across his sharply defined profile. He lifted the cup of now lukewarm coffee to his lips, taking another sip, the bitter flavor seemingly intensified. Yet, the corners of his mouth remained adorned with a cold, all-encompassing smile, as if all the world's turmoil lay within his grasp, subject to his will. Even as the cornered beast fights, he was the hunter weaving the snare, calmly observing the desperate struggles of his prey. Chapter 68. The Desperate Struggle. London, atop the headquarters of the Wentawosy Group. Outside, the typical overcast British sky loomed, leaden clouds hanging low, stifling the air. Within the office, the once lustrous walnut paneling and leather furnishings had lost their luster, permeated by a palpable atmosphere of despair. Yace Wentawosy slumped in a grand high-backed chair, his meticulously styled golden-brown hair now disheveled, dark circles shadowing his once handsome visage, which appeared gaunt and hollowed from days of anxiety and sleeplessness, stubble sprouting upon his chin. In his hands, he clutched an up-to-date financial report, his knuckles white from the strain, the edges of the paper crumpled from his grip. That exorbitant deposit had nearly depleted all his liquid assets, compelling him to mortgage parts of the family's non-core assets just to meet Zid's demands and transfer the funds into the designated Swiss account. Yet, since that moment, all had vanished into silence. He had attempted countless times to contact Ziyad, only to be met with the sweetly voiced but impenetrable secretary, who would inform him that the sheik was engaged in an important royal meeting or performing religious pilgrimages in Mecca, rendering him unavailable. During Ramadan, the sheik required more prayers and meditation, a myriad of grandiloquent excuses keeping him at bay. The signing of the contract dragged on interminably, stretching from the initially agreed 2 weeks to a month, and then to an indefinite future. Each inquiry was met with vague evasions. Yace was no fool, at this juncture. Even if he wished to remain in denial, the harsh truth was beginning to dawn upon him. What of DeSantis raising the bid? What of the need for more detailed scrutiny? All mere fabrications. He had been played by the seemingly dignified and honorable Sheikh Ziyad, in collusion with Lorenzo DeSantis. He had been thoroughly deceived. That astronomical deposit, like meat buns thrown to dogs, was evidently irretrievable. The realization of this sent a piercing agony through him. For it was not merely a financial loss. It was a wager on his future and his family's reputation, now a total loss. A cold wave of despair engulfed him, and he relinquished his grip, allowing the financial report to drift silently to the carpet below. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, attempting to quell the violent pounding of his heart and the suffocating sensation within his chest. Was it over? Would it end like this? He could almost envision the disappointment and fury in the eyes of his family members, the merciless creditors of the underworld demanding repayment, the ancient surname Wentawosy collapsing in disgrace. At that moment, a gentle knock echoed at the office door, and his trusted assistant entered, holding a vibrating satellite phone, his face pale, hesitating in his steps. "Sir, it is Mr. Hewitt's assistant from the underworld," he spoke, his voice betraying a barely perceptible tremor, evidently aware of the significance of the call. Yace's eyes shot open. His once gentle blue irises now bloodshot, swirling with humiliation, anger, and a terrifying edge of madness. He regarded the phone, akin to a harbinger of doom, imagining the cold, accusatory visage of the underworld's upper echelons on the other end. "Get out. Let him leave." Yace erupted, like a wounded beast caught in a trap, his voice hoarse and piercing. He seized the satellite phone from his assistant's hands and, summoning all his strength, hurled it violently against the wall adorned with the ancestral portrait of the Wentawosy family. A thunderous crash ensued. The expensive satellite phone shattered into countless pieces, fragments of plastic and metal scattering. The portrait of his ancestor, depicted hunting gallantly on horseback, was jolted askew. The assistant, trembling in fear, retreated to the corner, too frightened to utter a sound. Yace's chest heaved violently, breaths coming in ragged gasps, veins bulging on his forehead, hands trembling with rage and frustration. He could not accept it. He could not concede defeat so easily. For revenge, for the reclamation of Linji, he had sacrificed so much, even willing to engage in dealings with demons like the underworld, staking the fate of his entire family. "No, I have not lost yet," he murmured to himself, his gaze momentarily vacant, only to be replaced by a fervent and deranged glimmer. Regarding Eastern Europe, he still had resources there, the weapons and men provided by the underworld. A reckless, perilous thought began to fester in his chaotic mind. If conventional business tactics could not vanquish Lorenzo, if he had been driven to the brink of despair, then why not leverage the hidden forces lurking in the shadows to deliver a lethal, unpredictable blow to Lorenzo DeSantis? Even if it meant mutual destruction in the end, he could not allow the man who had ruined him to thrive. He could not let the Wentawosy family perish by his hand in such a humiliating manner. He sprang to his feet, his eyes glinting with a near-manic resolve, bellowing at his cowering assistant in the corner. "Get out. No one is permitted to enter without my command." Meanwhile, in Dubai, at the underwater restaurant Oceano in the Atlantis Hotel, the atmosphere starkly contrasted with London's oppressive gloom. The restaurant lay beneath the surface, where the immense arched glass walls framed a crystalline expanse of artificial sea, teeming with vibrant tropical fish gliding leisurely, while massive manta rays soared gracefully by, and sharks cast austere shadows in the distance. Ethereal blue light refracted through the water, enveloping the entire restaurant in a dreamlike, mysterious splendor. Lualunzuo and Zayed occupied a private booth at the restaurant's prime vantage point. The table was adorned with exquisite French cuisine and Arabic delicacies, silver cutlery and crystal glasses glinting in the cool blue light. Dressed in a deep blue tailored suit, Lualunzuo eschewed a tie, his shirt collar casually open, presenting a more relaxed demeanor than usual, yet his commanding presence remained undiminished. He raised a crystal glass filled with amber champagne, gazing across at Zayed, his deep gray eyes reflecting sincere gratitude. Zayed, this endeavor owes much to your support. His voice resonated clearly and deeply in the tranquil underwater setting. Zayed, clad in an exquisitely crafted white Arabic robe, adorned with a red gutra headdress, burst into hearty laughter, his booming mirth even drawing the curious attention of nearby fish. He waved his hand and raised his glass, which contained a specially crafted non-alcoholic grape juice, gently clinking it with Lorenzo's. What for? Lorenzo, my brother, he exclaimed in English, tinged with a heavy Arabic accent, his eyes bright and sincere. Have you forgotten? Back in Cairo, if it weren't for your quick reflexes and remarkable skills, dragging me out of that bullet-riddled car like a chick during that sudden street riot, I might have long since turned into a grain of sand in the Sahara, blown away by the winds. As he spoke, he gestured animatedly, recounting the thrilling scene without a trace of fear, only a sense of nostalgia and jest for their past camaraderie. Recalling that perilous moment, the hardened corners of Lorenzo's lips also lifted slightly, drawing forth a genuine smile. That smile softened his otherwise sharp features, and against the backdrop of the deep blue water, it possessed an astonishing allure. You were merely fortunate. Your fate was not to be extinguished. It is Allah's blessing that I encountered you. Zayed corrected him with unwavering conviction. He set down his glass and picked up a slender wooden box wrapped in deep blue velvet, which had been prepared earlier. The box was adorned with intricate geometric patterns crafted from gold and various gemstones, exuding an air of opulence. He pushed the box towards Lorenzo, a smile of blessing gracing his face. Here, this is a gift for your Eastern lily, a token of blessing from the desert. Lorenzo raised an eyebrow slightly as he took the box, feeling its weight, imbued with the warmth of wood and jewels. He opened the lid, and in the dim blue light, the contents of the box shimmered brilliantly. Inside lay an exquisitely crafted set of Arabic-style jewelry. The centerpiece was a necklace composed of countless evenly sized, deep-hued royal blue sapphires and flawless diamonds, intricately arranged into a design of vines and flowers, with a teardrop-shaped, rare Paraiba tourmaline pendant surrounded by delicate diamonds, resembling stars encircling the moon. Accompanying it were a matching bracelet and earrings. Every detail showcased unparalleled craftsmanship and luxury, embodying rich Arabic flair and heartfelt wishes for beauty, purity, and happiness. Even Lorenzo, accustomed to the world's treasures, felt a subtle stir of emotion in his deep gray eyes upon witnessing this gift. Its value was not merely material, but also the sincere blessing Zayed extended towards him and Linji. Zayed, this is too much. He began to express his gratitude. However, Zayed interrupted him, firmly patting his shoulder with an undeniable cheerfulness and sincerity. Between us, there is no need for thanks, only the bond of good friends. He withdrew his smile, his expression turning solemn as he sincerely uttered in Arabic, May Allah bless you both with eternal happiness, my brother. Lorenzo gazed into his eyes, reflecting pure sincerity, and felt a long-frozen corner of his heart melt under the warmth of this desert friendship. He closed the box, refraining from further pleasantries, simply nodding solemnly, accepting that weighty blessing. I will, he replied in a low, determined tone. The two exchanged smiles, an unspoken understanding passing between them. They raised their glasses once more, the crystal clinking melodiously in the air, harmonizing with the tranquil fish swimming outside the restaurant, creating a warm and harmonious scene. The host and guest reveled in their camaraderie, the essence of friendship and understanding flowing freely in their toasts. Meanwhile, in a distant office in London, shrouded in clouds, Arthur Wentworth was fervently fixated on his computer screen, frantically reaching out to the hidden resources of Eastern Europe. An even more perilous and uncontrollable storm was quietly brewing in the midst of his reckless gamble. Chapter 69. A yearning heart. A private jet pierced through the leaden clouds over London, gradually descending onto a private runway. Outside the window, the familiar English landscape appeared hazy and serene in the light rain. Lorenzo closed the classified documents in his hand, a flicker of urgency to return home crossing his deep gray eyes. He had not informed the estate of his return. A sudden thought of surprise prompted his usually stern lips to curve into a nearly gentle smile. Instead of the iconic and attention-grabbing Rolls-Royce Phantom, he opted for a more understated, yet equally powerful Bentley Mulsanne. The convoy silently glided into the estate, rolling over the rain-soaked gravel path. halting before the heavy oak doors of the main residence. When Anna, the housekeeper, heard the commotion on the porch, she set down the silverware she was polishing and hurried outside, her well-maintained face betraying her astonishment at the sight of the weary, yet upright Lorenzo. "Sir, you have returned?" she stammered, instinctively glancing at the hall's clock, realizing he should still be in the Middle East handling affairs. Lorenzo raised a slender finger, gently pressing it to his lips in a gesture for silence. His typically austere face now bore a glimmer of mischievous youthfulness, and his gray eyes sparkled with rare ease. "Shoo, Anna, everything is as usual. Do not inform Xi," he said in a low voice, slightly hoarse from the long journey, yet remarkably gentle. Anna instantly understood his intention. Witnessing this rare glimpse of almost childlike demeanor, a wave of bittersweet emotion surged within her. She had served the DeSantis family for decades, watching as this man, at 17, suddenly lost his parents and single-handedly shouldered the vast and perilous empire. From that moment on, coldness, composure, and decisiveness became the only mask he showed to the world, with smiles turning into a rare luxury. She had nearly forgotten that her master, stripped of those heavy identities and responsibilities, was capable of such vividness. It was Lin Ji's arrival that acted like a warm ray of light, illuminating his long-frozen heart and restoring his humanity. Anna's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she quickly lowered her head, respectfully replying, "Yes, sir. Miss Ji is currently in the study on the second floor, saying she would have lunch there." Lorenzo nodded, without taking the time to remove his long black cashmere coat, dampened by the outdoor humidity, or to heed Marco and Stephen's soft inquiries about handling the luggage documents he had brought back. He was consumed by a singular thought of seeing her immediately. He strode forward, almost unable to contain his eagerness as he headed toward the curved staircase leading to the second floor. Initially, his steps retained their customary steadiness, but as he approached the study, his pace involuntarily quickened, eventually breaking into a near run along the thickly carpeted corridor. The expensive custom-made leather shoes thudded against the soft carpet, echoing the urgency and tumultuous emotions within him. As he neared the familiar study door, adorned with a brass handle, he suddenly halted. Taking a deep breath, he consciously regulated his breathing, lightening his hurried steps to be as quiet and slow as the top predator stalking its unsuspecting prey, silently edging closer to the door, and then gently twisting the doorknob. Inside the study, Lin Ji was engrossed at the expansive mahogany desk. Outside, the rain pattered softly, and the room was illuminated by a solitary classical brass lamp, casting a warm glow over her concentrated profile. She adorned herself in a comfortable cream-colored cashmere sweater. Her lustrous black hair casually swept into a loose bun at the back of her head, with a few rebellious strands cascading down her cheeks. Engrossed in a complex array of data and scattered literature, she furrowed her brow in contemplation, her delicate fingertips absently twirling a pencil. Upon hearing the faint sound of the door opening, she assumed it was Anna, who routinely delivered her lunch. Without lifting her gaze, her eyes remained glued to the page, her tone absent-minded, characteristic of a researcher deep in thought. "Anna, please just leave my lunch in the small hall outside the study. I need to continue working. There seems to be an issue with this data." After a brief pause, she realized she had not received the usual gentle response from the housekeeper, nor the subtle sound of the tray being placed down. The study was unusually silent, save for the sound of rain and her own breathing. Curiosity piqued. She lifted her gaze, and in the next moment, her breath hitched, her almond-shaped eyes widening in astonishment. Before her stood the very man she believed to be far away, now alive and vibrant in the doorway. His tall frame nearly filled the doorframe, the dampness of the outdoors clinging to his shoulders and the hem of his coat. His hair slightly wet with a few rebellious strands falling over his forehead, adding an untamed wildness to his demeanor. He stood there, his deep gray eyes resembling a night sky filled with stars, fixated upon her, brimming with unabashed longing, fervent emotion, and a hint of triumph from orchestrating this surprise. Before Luo Linji's startled exclamation could fully escape her lips, Lorenzo surged forward like a cheetah zeroing in on its prey, his long legs taking powerful strides as a gust of cool air and an irresistible force propelled him to her desk in an instant. He granted her no time to react, bending down, extending his hand, and effortlessly lifting her from the expansive armchair, embracing her suddenly. "Ah!" Linji gasped in surprise, her body momentarily suspended, instinctively wrapping her arms tightly around his neck, her long legs instinctively encircling his sturdy waist, their closeness causing her cheeks to flush a deep crimson. Lorenzo, in turn, lowered his head, showering her with fervent kisses that fell like raindrops, precisely capturing her lips that had parted in astonishment. This kiss carried the parched essence of the desert, the weariness of a long journey, and a near-greedy desire, forcefully parting her lips, delving deep within, entwining and savoring as if to compensate for the days of longing they had endured apart. His arms enveloped her like iron bands, the strength of his embrace suggesting he wished to melt her entirely into his very being. Initially stiffened by shock, Linji soon softened under his familiar and reassuring scent and passionate advance. She closed her eyes, feeling his strong heartbeat resonate through layers of fabric. Sensing the undeniable love and yearning shared between their lips, her heart swelling with immense surprise and happiness as she began to respond, shy yet fervent. In the study, only their hurried breaths, the intimate sounds of their lips mingling, and the gentle patter of rain outside remained. Time became irrelevant until Linji felt as though her lungs were about to burst, gently tapping his shoulder, at which point Lorenzo reluctantly withdrew slightly, their foreheads still touching, breath mingling in the charged air. He carried her a few steps to a more spacious velvet armchair, yet maintained her securely on his lap, as if safeguarding the most precious treasure. Linji's cheeks retained their rosy hue, her breath still uneven as she nestled her flushed face into the damp collar of his coat. Inhaling the unique scent of cedar mingled with the essence of travel, feeling an overwhelming sense of surrealism. She reached out, her fingertips gently brushing against his somewhat tousled hair, feeling its coarse texture, much like his persona. "How could you return so quickly?" she asked, lifting her dazed eyes, her voice carrying a post-kiss huskiness and a hint of confusion. "Is everything resolved?" Lorenzo lowered his head, placing a tender kiss on her smooth forehead before impulsively kissing her flushed cheek, his voice low and content, tinged with an almost imperceptible weariness, yet predominantly filled with joy. "Yes, it has been resolved." He paused, gazing deeply into her eyes, which reflected an unmistakable affection. As soon as it was settled, I rushed back. His arms tightened around her, pulling her closer to his chest, his chin lightly brushing against the crown of her head. And in a tone that starkly contrasted with his usual demeanor, he confessed, "I missed you so much, Ji." This candidness, filled with vulnerability typical of lovers, rendered Linji's heart utterly tender. She ceased to inquire further about the intricacies of the business dealings, opting instead to embrace him tightly, burying her face deep into the crook of his neck, nodding fervently, her voice muffled yet brimming with the same longing and affection. "I missed you too, Lorenzo." Lorenzo felt her unwavering trust and attachment, dissipating the last remnants of his fatigue. He lowered his head, gently nuzzling her petite, upturned nose, their eyes meeting, so close that they could see their own reflections and the nearly overflowing happiness and love within each other's gaze. They broke into laughter simultaneously, their smiles pure and warm, dispelling the gloom of a London winter day. Outside the study door, Anna, the housekeeper, had not strayed far, peering through the partially closed door. She beheld the embracing lovers, witnessing the long-awaited, unclouded smile upon her employer's face and the glimmer of happiness in Miss Linji's eyes. With a content smile, she quietly closed the door, leaving this sweet, intimate space entirely to them. Meanwhile, at the far end of the corridor, Marco and Steward Stevens exchanged knowing glances, recognizing the relief reflected in each other's eyes, and silently turned to attend to the myriad of tasks that awaited following their master's return. Chapter 70. The wedding date. Amidst the persistent drizzle at Hampstead Manor, a rare sun-kissed afternoon emerged. Delicate golden rays filtered through the large floor-to-ceiling windows of the small hall, casting a warm glow upon the soft, luxurious Persian carpet. The air was filled with the crackling sounds of dry oak logs burning in the fireplace and the gentle scent of lily essential oil wafting through the space. Linji lounged languidly on a plush sofa, enveloped in a soft white cashmere blanket. Lorenzo sat closely beside her, one arm possessively encircling her shoulders, while his other hand held a hefty, gold-embossed jewelry design catalog. Clad in a deep gray cashmere turtleneck that accentuated his broad shoulders and solid chest, paired with well-fitted trousers of the same shade, he exuded a relaxed yet undeniably masculine charm, shedding any semblance of severity. "Look at this," he said, his long fingers pointing to a design of a principal diamond ring in the catalog, his voice deep and gentle, carrying a hint of seductive allure. The centerpiece is a flawless D-color 20-carat pear-shaped diamond, encased in a platinum setting designed to resemble lily petals, adorned with step-cut diamonds along the edges. And the stamen features a rare light pink diamond. Do you like it? The design was extravagantly luxurious, yet ingeniously incorporated her beloved lily motif, exuding both nobility and elegance. Linji's eyes sparkled immediately, as if she had caught sight of stars. She tilted her head back to look at him, nodding vigorously, her lips curving into a sweet smile. "I love it. It's so beautiful, Lorenzo." As she unabashedly expressed her delight, Lorenzo's previously stern features softened astonishingly, and a satisfied smile flickered in his deep gray eyes. He leaned down and placed a gentle kiss atop her head, continuing, "The wedding dress has arrived from Venice, along with the final confirmation photos. The main fabric is ivory silk chiffon, with the hem and veil intricately embroidered with dark patterned lilies by that old craftsman, adorned with diamonds from the same collection as your ring at the critical petals and veins. Under the light, it will shimmer subtly with your movements." He retrieved a tablet, displaying the breathtaking dress. The exquisite lily embroidery seemed to dance in and out of view, while the diamonds sparkled like morning dew, enveloping it in an air of purity and dreaminess. Linji gazed in rapt attention, her heart brimming with immense happiness. Unable to contain herself, she turned and playfully wrapped her arms around Lorenzo's sturdy waist, burying her face against his warm, solid chest, murmuring, "You have thought of everything so thoroughly." Lorenzo chuckled softly, the vibrations resonating in his chest as he tightened his embrace, his chin brushing against her soft hair. The bridal bouquet and the main flowers in the banquet hall will all feature various rare types of lilies. I have arranged for the finest specimens to be airlifted from the Netherlands, France, and Kenya, ensuring that on that day, you will be surrounded by a unique and lavish sea of lilies. He paused, his tone growing more serious. As for your parents and several important relatives on your side, I have taken care of their travel plans, accommodations, and attire. They will be flown in a week in advance to allow them ample time to acclimatize and rest. His meticulous arrangements reflected his utmost regard and respect for her and her family. Lin Ji lifted her gaze, her almond-shaped eyes glistening with a veil of emotion as she looked at this man who had poured his tenderness into her. Her voice trembled slightly. "Lorenzo, thank you." Witnessing her on the verge of tears stirred a deeper affection within Lorenzo, yet he couldn't help but entertain a mischievous thought. He lowered his head, their foreheads almost touching, his nose nearly brushing against hers, his deep gray eyes sparkling with playful charm, his warm breath caressing her lips. "My Ji, are you so moved? A mere verbal thank you won't suffice. Why not come and kiss me?" His voice, deep and husky, bore a magnetic allure, akin to the richest of wines, intoxicating in its essence. Lin Ji's cheeks flushed crimson, and she playfully pinched his arm, yet she yielded to shyness, tilting her head up to press her soft, cool lips against his warm, thin ones. Lorenzo promptly turned the tables, becoming the initiator of the kiss, deepening their connection. His arms tightened around her, firmly holding her in place, his tongue deftly parting her lips, tenderly yet dominantly savoring her sweetness, infused with endless affection and ardor. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm golden hue over the embracing couple, as the air filled with a sweet, lingering intimacy. Even the flickering flames in the fireplace seemed to soften. At this tender moment, a polite yet restrained knock at the door gently shattered the tranquility. Lorenzo frowned slightly, displeased to end the kiss, but he kept his arms around Lin Ji, allowing her to rest against him. He composed his breathing, his voice returning to its usual calm demeanor, tinged with a hint of irritation at the interruption. "Come in." The door opened to reveal Marco's tall figure, clad in a sharply tailored black suit. His demeanor was respectful, eyes cast down, avoiding direct contact with the intimate scene on the sofa. "Your Excellency," he intoned solemnly. "Speak," Lorenzo replied lazily, reclining against the back of the sofa, absent-mindedly stroking Lin Ji's long hair, exuding the contentment of a sated lion. Marco reported in a steady voice, as if relaying the most mundane business information. "I have just received news that the Wentworth family business has been officially taken over by Mingi Capital due to its failure to meet mortgage terms in the wager agreement. All core assets have been liquidated and transferred, leaving the Wentworth family effectively defunct. Arthur Wentworth himself has left the family estate and is currently missing. He is, in essence, a lost soul." Upon hearing this, Lorenzo's expression remained unperturbed, as if he had anticipated and controlled the entire situation. He merely acknowledged with a faint his deep gray eyes betraying no ripple of emotion, as if he had merely heard a leaf fall outside. He waved his hand, signaling Marco to take his leave. However, Lin Ji, nestled in his embrace, stiffened at the mention of Arthur Wentworth and the phrase lost soul. She straightened up, breaking free from Lorenzo's hold, turning to him with disbelief etched across her face, her eyes wide with shock, her voice quivering. "Lorenzo, what about Arthur?" Before she could finish her question, Lorenzo placed a long, slender finger gently against her soft lips, silencing her. His gaze remained calm and unwavering as he shook his head slightly. Marco, understanding, immediately bowed and quietly exited the small hall, softly closing the door behind him. The room returned to silence, yet the sweet atmosphere had dissipated, replaced by a subtle tension. Lin Ji anxiously grasped Lorenzo's hand, confusion and a hint of sorrow filling her eyes. What is happening? How could Arthur's family suddenly? Lorenzo turned her cool fingers over in his warm palm, holding them tightly. He gazed into her clear, untainted eyes. Aware that it was time to reveal part of the truth, he could not allow her to remain in her ivory tower forever. "Ji," his voice was deep and steady, carrying a calmness that conveyed the gravity of the situation. "The cargo we had in the Americas was hijacked, resulting in personnel losses. And the oil field contract in the Middle East was obstructed. All of this was orchestrated by Arthur Wentworth. He allied with Mingi Capital in North America, attempting to undermine me, possibly harboring other unrealistic aspirations." He paused, observing her reaction, and seeing the flicker of shock and understanding in her eyes. He continued, "Thus, my old friend Zayed and I orchestrated the gift of that jewelry to you. The seemingly enticing oil field contract was, in fact, a trap." Lin Ji was taken aback. Although she was not involved in the dark side of business, she was not completely naive. Recalling Arthur's complex and stubborn gaze at the award ceremony, she realized that while she was unaware, a thrilling game of strategy had unfolded elsewhere. "Ji," Lorenzo's voice drew her back from her thoughts, his gaze profound, bearing an undeniable resolve. "These actions were necessary. In my position, if I do not respond with force to provocation and attack, my reputation, the livelihoods of my subordinates, and the vast business network of the DeSantis family would all face imminent collapse. Mercy, at times, equates to weakness and self-destruction. His words, calm yet brutal, revealed the stark realities of his world. Lin Ji fell silent, her gaze lowered, her long lashes casting a delicate shadow upon her cheeks. She understood, yet the thought of a once helpful old friend meeting such a tragic fate filled her heart with a sense of sorrow and regret. After a prolonged silence, she lifted her gaze, her eyes imbued with a hint of pleading as she looked towards Luo Lunzuo. Her voice, soft yet resolute, resonated with sincerity. Luo Lunzuo, I comprehend your predicament. The marketplace resembles a battleground. If you do not retaliate, you shall be devoured. However, she bit her lip, could we refrain from utterly vanquishing Arthur? If feasible, could we discreetly support him in his hour of desperation, ensuring that he and his family do not face complete annihilation? After all, the Wentworth family is an ancient lineage that has endured for many years. I cannot bear to witness its total disappearance. Her words were imbued with kindness and a profound compassion, illuminating the essence of her character. Luo Lunzuo gazed deeply into her eyes, witnessing the purity of her untainted request. The icy fortress within his heart was once again gently stirred by her warmth, beginning to thaw. After a moment of silence, as if weighing his options, he raised his hand and tenderly brushed her cheek, his fingertips radiating warmth. He nodded, making a solemn promise, his voice low and earnest. Very well. I assure you, I shall instruct Marco to arrange, at an opportune moment and in a manner that goes unnoticed, to leave a glimmer of hope for his family, ensuring they do not find themselves destitute. However, a glint of cold warning flickered in his gray eyes. Arthur Wentworth must henceforth remain docile and refrain from any foolish attempts to challenge me or covet you. Upon receiving his pledge, Lin Ji's eyes sparkled with gratitude, for she understood that this was a significant concession for him. She vigorously nodded, once again enveloping him in her embrace, tightly holding him as her voice, muffled against his chest, overflowed with trust and emotion. Thank you, Luo Lunzuo. Thank you for being willing to do this for me. Luo Lunzuo held her soft form, feeling her complete trust envelop him. He lowered his head and kissed the crown of her hair, his deep gray eyes swirling with complex emotions, affection and indulgence intertwined with a cold vigilance regarding the lingering threat. Yet, in this moment, the warmth in his arms eclipsed all else. Chapter 71. The Wedding in Italy, by the shores of Lake Como. An ancient castle belonging to the DeSantis family awakened in the early summer morning light. The imposing stone walls were adorned with lush ivy, and lofty towers reached towards the azure sky. Today, this fortress, steeped in centuries of history, was set to host one of the grandest and most solemn ceremonies in nearly a century, the wedding of Luo Lunzuo DeSantis and Lin Ji. The castle, both inside and out, had been transformed into an exquisite realm of luxury and romance. From the magnificent wrought iron gates leading to the main hall, the broad stone pathway was lined with elegant Roman column flower stands, entwined with fresh lilies and ivy, their pure whites and vibrant greens intermingling. The air was perfumed with the delicate and lasting fragrance of hundreds of rare lilies, including such invaluable varieties as Casablanca and Oriental lilies. Sunlight filtered through the ancient tree canopies, casting dappled golden spots, as if laying a path of sanctity for the wedding. The grand banquet hall within the castle was a marvel to behold, seamlessly blending the splendor of the Renaissance with modern elegance. The high vaulted ceiling was adorned with exquisite religious murals, while the surrounding walls displayed monumental oil paintings from generations of the DeSantis family's collection. Massive crystal chandeliers sparkled like brilliant stars, refracting myriad beams of light, intertwining with the warm glow of the wall sconces, illuminating the entire hall. Most striking was the pervasive sea of lilies. A colossal floral installation, dominated by pure white lilies, was accented by rare shades of soft pink and pale yellow. From the cascading bouquets adorning the sides of the altar to the delicate wrist corsages behind each guest's seat, and the intricate floral centerpiece on the long dining tables, every detail bespoke the host's utmost respect and indulgence for the bride's preferences. Even the fragrance wafting through the air was a special blend, predominantly featuring lilies, intermingled with the grounding essence of cedar and amber, exuding both purity and a touch of Luo Lunzuo's characteristic coolness and depth. Security measures had been elevated to the highest level, surpassing even the standards of some state visits. Guards in tailored black suits, equipped with discreet earpieces, moved silently as vigilant shadows throughout the castle, their sharp gazes scanning every corner. All guests had undergone 3 stringent and discreet identity verifications, with even the servers being trusted confidants personally vetted by Marco. The attendees consisted of dignitaries, royal family members, and leaders of multinational corporations from across Europe, alongside a select few powerful figures discreetly connected to the DeSantis family. They conversed in hushed tones, their manners refined. Yet their eyes betrayed a certain measure of consideration regarding the significance of this union and a reverence for the strength of the DeSantis family. In the area reserved for Linji's parents and a few close relatives, the atmosphere was even more heartwarming and poignant. Lin Yizhou and Zhuang Mingshu were dressed in traditional Chinese attire custom-made by a master craftsman from Suzhou at Luo Lunzuo's request, dignified yet festive. Observing the extraordinary spectacle before them, they felt a genuine happiness for their daughter, albeit tinged with a sense of constraint within such a powerful circle in a foreign land. As they beheld the prominent figures they had only seen in the news, their understanding of Luo Lunzuo's influence deepened, further affirming that their daughter had found a man capable of elevating her to the pinnacle of the world. The ceremony was about to commence. Guests had taken their seats, and the orchestra commenced a soothing yet solemn classical piece. Luo Lunzuo stood before the altar, adorned with countless white lilies and ivy, his back to the grand stained-glass window depicting angels and saints. He wore a black velvet morning coat, crafted by a legendary Seville Rowe tailor in London.